American detective, master of the quick draw, Western style. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. I was robbing my fellow criminals, and now you say I am your undercover agent in the detective bureau? In 2000, outside Los Angeles, in a wooden house deep in the jungle, exaggerated and arrogant laughter came from time to time. We're rich. Ha ha ha, $3.8 million, $3.8 million, how many girls can I sleep with? A group of robbers who had just finished robbing looked greedily at the U.S. knives covering a whole table, holding burning marijuana in their hands, looking excited, and grabbing a handful of U.S. knives and kissing them from time to time. The woods outside the house. Dean listened to the noise in the wooden house 7 or 8 meters away, lowered his head, and looked at the surrounding forest environment in a daze. Where the hell is this? Where is the big foreign horse I hired with a lot of money? After 3 soul questions, Dean shook subconsciously. It was like completing a ritual after draining water. A tingling feeling ran from the spine to the forehead, clearly telling Dean that everything in front of him was real. Is this a time travel? Dean realized this problem and quickly checked his body. It's really different. There were no more hideous scars on his body from being punished when he was a child, and no more calluses and scars on his hands from practicing various skills. Using the big tree next to him as a reference, this body was much taller than in his previous life, with a broad skeleton, strong muscles, and full of strength, far surpassing the sickly body in his previous life. In his previous life, Dean was an orphan. When he was 8 or 9 years old, he was taken away from the welfare home by foreigners and taken to an overseas island, where he spent his extremely dark childhood. Because of his physical condition, although he had a good gun skill, he was not good at fighting. Fortunately, he was smart. In the end, he survived from a group of cannon fodder companions and passed the lowest requirement of the cleaner assessment, and finally became the outermost cannon fodder of the organization. Before crossing, Dean had just completed a task. He habitually found a big foreign horse with a protruding front and a curvy back, ready to relax his tense spirit. As a result, as soon as he took off his pants, his eyes went dark. When he opened his eyes again, things had changed. Dean was undoubtedly very happy about crossing. He no longer had to live a precarious life like a sewer rat. It was a pity for that big foreigner. He had given the money, but as soon as he took off his pants, he came over. The job was not done yet. After Dean calmed down, he found that his mind actually carried the original memory of this body, but it was still a little confused and could not provide him with useful information at present. Out of professional habit, he looked around. This should be a forest that few people have set foot on. There were at least 6 or 7 people in the noisy wooden house not far away. Outside the wooden house, there were 2 pickup trucks parked. Behind the pickup trucks were several half-person high oil drums, with fresh mud on the tires and the doors wide open. Thinking of the few words that came from the wooden house just now, Dean concluded that this was a group of robbers who had just finished a robbery and then head here to avoid the limelight. What about himself? Thinking of the fact that he had just traveled through time and the owner of this body was draining water, a bad idea came to Dean's mind. He might be an accomplice of this group of robbers. He quickly checked himself and found an M1911 full of bullets. In addition, there was a full spare magazine in his pocket. Dean was furious. Fuck, I was a scavenger in my previous life, and I became a robber in this life. I can't live without a knife, right? Why is it so difficult to be a good person? Just when he was lamenting that he was destined to be a bad person, he took out a certificate with a Los Angeles police badge from his left pocket. What is this? Dean opened it and found that it was a detective certificate from the Los Angeles Police Department and the Anti-Crime and Drug Enforcement Division, with a name and photo of the owner of the certificate on it. Dean Lee's name is the same as my full name in my previous life. He has black hair and blue eyes. He is quite handsome and looks a bit like an ancient Roman. Dean thought that this detective certificate was found on him, and his heart moved. He pulled hair from his head and found that it was black hair. It was a hammer. In this life, he is not a robber, but a detective. Maybe the owner of this body followed the robbers and came here, then he had to pee urgently, so he took a break and ended up occupying his body. At this moment, the people in the house started to make noise again. Dean listened carefully and found that the group of people were discussing how to have fun with the $3.8 million after avoiding the limelight. He looked at the gun in his hand and felt itchy. $3.8 million. It was equivalent to the commission for hundreds of missions in his previous life. Detectives also have to make a living, right? Compared with solving cases and getting promoted, isn't it better to cheat the gangs? As soon as this thought arose, it was like an ant in Dean's heart, crawling around in Dean's heart. Do it. Dean's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He took out his pistol, loaded it, and replaced it with a spare magazine. After maintaining the strongest firepower of 7+1, he moved towards the window of the wooden house. These robbers were stupid and didn't even arrange a sentry. Dean looked through the window and saw the situation inside clearly. There were 7 robbers, all black. 6 of them were standing around a table full of banknotes, holding a full banknote in one hand and a marijuana cigarette in the other, looking intoxicated. Another man, who was extremely strong, with muscles like molten steel, was standing on a wooden stake, puffing smoke from a cigar, and watching the 6 people dancing in front of the table. Dean's predecessor seemed to have a deep impression of this extremely strong black man. The moment he saw him, some fragmented information immediately emerged in his mind. Nathan, the boss of a small gang. This made Dean more certain of his identity as a detective of the Anti-Crime and Drug Enforcement Division. Otherwise, why would he care so much about the other party's information? These people may have just succeeded, and at this moment they are in a state of complacency, with their long guns and short guns thrown casually on the chairs behind them. Seeing this, Dean was helpless. This group of idiots is simply tempting him to cheat. Remember everyone's position. Dean walked to the door, calculated it once, took a deep breath, and kicked the wooden door open. The loud bang attracted the attention of everyone in the room. Everyone looked at Dean, who kicked the door in with some confusion. The black man holding a cigar was stunned for a moment, and said unhappily, "Dean, what are you sending?" Although Dean was surprised that the other party knew him, he was always too lazy to talk nonsense with it. Bang bang bang, 8 consecutive gunshots. He did not change his face, and emptied the magazine in one breath with a set of American IAI that the old Americans were familiar with, and beat all 7 people to the ground, screaming continuously. Especially the boss Nathan, who was taken care of by Dean, and fired 2 consecutive shots at the other's chest. The scream was very short. The M1911 in Dean's hand used .45 caliber bullets, which were as powerful as rifles at close range. When it hit a person, a bloody hole was immediately created. The people who were shot struggled for a few times, then their eyes widened, blood soaked their clothes, and they looked like they died with their eyes open. In the blink of an eye, the originally happy wooden house became a hell with corpses everywhere. Nathan was physically strong and had not completely died. He raised his hand with difficulty, pointed at Dean tremblingly, and wanted to say something, but only coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood. Dean whistled, changed the magazine, squatted in front of the other party, and teased, "Have you never seen detectives robbing each other? Why are your eyes so wide open?" After spitting out a few mouthfuls of blood, Nathan finally made a weak voice, "FK, I asked you to go undercover in the detective bureau, you bastard, you dare to robbing each other." Dean was stunned. "Fuck, I robbing each other, and you said I was your undercover arranged in the detective bureau." He acted too quickly. His memory has not yet merged, and he doesn't know if Nathan has any handle on him. But on second thought, robbing each other is wonderful. These people should be the core members of Nathan's team and know their identities. Who cares if you have any evidence or not? Kill them all. Doesn't that mean there is no evidence? No big deal. After the memory merges, we can clean up the remaining potential risks. Besides, as a black policeman, he will definitely not take his own gun when participating in the robbery, so he won't even need to destroy the traces later. Thinking of this, Dean raised his pistol, pointed it at the dying Nathan, emptied the magazine again and killed 7 people in a row. The strong smell of blood, gunpowder, and marijuana mixed together, making people sick. Dean rubbed his head, which began to become confused due to the memory fusion, took out a cigarette from his pocket and lit it, then picked up a backpack that had been prepared long ago from the side and stuffed money into it. A US dollar weighed about 1 gram. Most of these US dollars were in denominations of 20, and only a small number were in denominations of 100. As for the $5, $10, and $50, there was not a single one. These money added up to more than 100,000 bills. More than $3 million US dollars, adding up to no less than 200 kilograms. Dean filled 2 large backpacks in a row before he finished packing the money. As the saying goes, to kill someone and to destroy the body. Although Dean's mind is a little confused now, as a professional scavenger, he is still proficient in his work. He wiped the gun in his hand clean and put it in one of the hands, then searched for documents and communication equipment that might reveal their identity information, smashed and destroyed them, and put them together. He also took a half-meter-high oil drum from the truck outside the house and started to clean up the traces. Boom! The raging fire set the wooden house on fire. There was an open space around the wooden house. After Dean was sure that the fire would not cause a forest fire, he looked at the address on his driver's license, started the pickup truck, and drove towards the forest path. P.S. Welcome to Join the Pit. You can read the author's words. The golden finger appears at the end of chapter 11. In addition, the case officially begins after chapter 16. I have also written millions of words and produced some small masterpieces. I don't say how well I write, but at least I won't poison you. Please feel free to enjoy it. In addition, due to translation problems, the names of positions and titles in the Detective Bureau are somewhat different. For details, please refer to the relevant works. The author writes about a parallel world, and the readers also read the plot story. Please don't use these things to argue with us. The same thing may have many names. Not to mention the confusing early translations. So for the setting problem, for the sake of the straightforwardness of the novel, please follow my standards. Chapter 2, Playing with Nesting Dolls. How come your predecessor is so handsome? Why would he go with the gangs? Aren't you afraid of being taken advantage of by those black guys? Dean looked at his angular face in the rearview mirror, feeling a little speechless. This body should be of mixed blood. Black hair and blue eyes, 3-dimensional facial features, strong skeleton. Overall, the body shape is more like that of a Westerner, but without the rough pores and thick body hair of Westerners. Being an undercover agent is already a failure. The predecessor is actually an anti-undercover agent inserted into the Detective Bureau by the gangs, which is a failure among the failures. From Dean's point of view, it is obviously more promising for the predecessor to be a gigolo or a model than to be a black policeman. The days of licking blood on the knife edge are not easy. In this line of work, most people are just rats in the sewer. Now Dean only hopes that his predecessor is not too involved with those gangs, so that he can turn back and become a 5-star good citizen of Los Angeles who can stand in the sun. Otherwise, he can only give up his identity as a detective and leave illegally. The pickup truck drove south for half an hour before finally exiting the forest trail. Dean's head became increasingly dizzy. In his mind, the memories of the two began to collide and merge, making his cognition much slower. In this situation, it was not suitable to continue driving. Dean slapped himself in the face, using the pain to stimulate his mind. His predecessor had just robbed a bank, and now the situation was unclear, so it was not suitable to stay in a hotel. He glanced around and saw that there were no vehicles in front or behind, so he simply turned the steering wheel and drove towards the wilderness. After a while, the car drove into a low-lying area and stopped in an area far away from the road. Dean locked the car window, squinted his eyes, and slowly fell asleep. Buzz. Dean opened his eyes in confusion, subconsciously took out a mobile phone from his pocket, and pressed the connect button. Who? Dean. A crisp female voice came from the other end of the phone. Hearing someone calling his name, the confusion in Dean's eyes gradually dissipated and focused on the phone. He shook his still heavy brain. This voice was somewhat familiar, as if its owner was very important to his predecessor. Dean realized that he had not yet fully integrated the memory of his predecessor. He was not sure who the other party was, so he could only say vaguely, Dean, you haven't called me for a long time. Is it convenient to answer the phone now? The female voice was very gentle. Could this woman be the girlfriend of his predecessor? Dean was a little confused. He continued to say vaguely, well, there is no one else around. Who would have thought that after he said that? The tone on the other end of the phone immediately became serious. Dean, what's the situation here? According to the regulations, you must contact me once every 3 days to report the situation, but now you haven't contacted me for 5 days. I thought you died in the line of duty. Dean? Question mark? Regulations? Died in the line of duty? Dean reacted quickly. Hey, you know, the regulations are fixed, but I always encounter unexpected situations. By the way, you must have something urgent to talk to me about. There was silence for a moment, and then continued, "It's very important. I want you to use Nathan as a clue to find out more about the recent bank robbery. That amount of money was transferred from Congressman Snart's family. If you can get a clue, it will be very easy for you to join the Robbery Murder Division, Major Crime Unit." Dean was stunned. Robbery Murder Division. Bank robbery. Damn. Dean turned around and glanced at the two large backpacks full of stuff on the back seat. He was so confused that his mind was a little confused. Nathan sent him to the detective bureau as an undercover agent, and then the detective bureau sent him back to lurk on Nathan's side? Question mark? Are they playing with nesting dolls? Seeing that the phone was silent, the woman asked in confusion, "Dean." Dean came back to his senses, rubbed his still aching head, and tentatively said, "This is a little difficult. You know, I am not black after all, and I can't fit in with their circle yet." Dean. The woman's tone became stern. "I am not discussing with you, this is an order." "But." "No buts." The woman interrupted Dean directly and softened her voice. "Dean, you don't want your internship to fail, do you? By then, not to mention the Los Angeles Police Department, the surrounding areas will not want you, a rookie who was fired during the internship." Dean. This woman's threat to him sounded a little strange. Moreover, with these millions, he could just give up his detective identity and live in another state. Who wants to join the Robbery Murder Division? Free America, gun battles every day. Dean has no intention of working for the Americans. He perfunctorily responded, "Okay, I know. Well, wait for your good news." After that, the other party hung up the phone directly. A fucking double-faced undercover. Dean thought hard for a moment, rubbed his still heavy head, his eyelids began to droop. Unable to resist the confusion and sleepiness in his mind, he fell asleep again. Countless fragments of memory hit him. In his dream, Dean began to experience the other side of another Dean's life. No mistake, one song, one post, one content, 1/6/19, one book, one bar, look. Los Angeles Police Department, Anti-Gang and Narcotics Division. Eve put down her phone and looked at Dean's information on the desktop. Her pretty eyebrows frowned. This chess piece gave her a bad feeling. Although Eve's tone on the phone was stern, in fact, she didn't have many means to control Dean. At the beginning, she was able to convince Dean, a rookie, to go undercover because the other party took the initiative to find her and wanted to go to the Robbery Murder Division. Other than that, Eve had no other means to control Dean. The other party only needed to give up his police identity, or give up his police identity in the Los Angeles area police station, and he could submit his resume to other state police stations. After all, in America, being a police officer is just a profession. It seems that I must find a way to better control this rookie. Eve's eyes flashed with determination. In principle, bank robbery cases are not under the responsibility of the Anti-Crime and Drug Enforcement Division. But this bank robbery case involves Senator Snart. Once she helps to solve it, it will be easy for her to take over the captain's position who is about to retire. This is a good opportunity. She must intervene. And Dean is the only person that she, the deputy captain, can use quietly at present. As long as the other party can get some information about the bank robbery, she can intervene openly, gain the favor of Senator Snart, and get into the upper circle. Thinking of this, Eve set her sights on Dean's address. A ray of morning sunlight, through the car window, projected on Dean's closed eyes. Dean groaned and slowly opened his eyes. In his mind, the memories of two people intersected and merged with each other, as if two people lived in one body. After being dazed for a while, Dean's eyes sparkled with a lively light again. He looked at the strange yet familiar face in the rearview mirror, rubbed his cheeks with his hands, and forced a stiff smile. From now on, I am Dean, a Dean who is determined to join the Los Angeles Robbery Murder Division in order to investigate the truth of his father's death. Of course, this was the idea of his predecessor. Dean had no feelings for his predecessor's family. He didn't want to be a detective. However, for safety reasons, he needed to eliminate the hidden dangers left by his predecessor, this idiot. Because his father died in a drug investigation case, when he was in school, this idiot took the initiative to approach Nathan and others in order to facilitate his approach to Mexican drug dealers later, and deliberately revealed that his father was a former detective with a good background and could easily join the detective bureau. After guidance, Nathan actually thought this was a good idea, so at the beginning, Dean's predecessor deliberately approached Nathan. But he didn't expect that after he was qualified to apply for the detective bureau because of his background, he was assigned to the anti-gang and anti-drug division because of his poor grades. He also met a pit boss who asked him to find a gang to be an undercover. Then the previous fool took the opportunity to return to Nathan's side. However, those who knew about his previous foolish deeds had died in the wooden house. Strictly speaking, he is now Dean, a trainee detective with a clean background. The hidden danger in Dean's mind refers to a woman. This is related to whether he can safely swallow the more than $3.8 million US. Dean touched the cold gun on his waist, started the car, changed direction, and drove towards Los Angeles. The robbery murder division is actually the serious crime team. The anti-gang and anti-drug division is actually the anti-gang group. In addition, due to translation problems, the titles of deputy captain and captain are somewhat different in some American TV series. Please follow my opinion. The author's understanding of America comes from American TV series and the internet. If there are common sense errors, please forgive me. Chapter 3: Hidden Dangers. The pickup truck was driving on the wide road. Dean also began to sort out his memories. He finally figured out his situation. This world is somewhat similar to his previous life, but many subtle details are different, more like two somewhat similar parallel worlds. His family is also a bit complicated. His father is a Los Angeles detective, a mixed Chinese and Irish. He died while investigating a drug case 8 years ago, and his father's relatives and friends gradually lost contact. Dean was only 13 years old at that time. He always suspected that there was another secret behind his father's death, which is why he did such a stupid thing as hooking up with Nathan during college, and graduated early after completing college credits, signed up for the Los Angeles Police Detective Department recruitment, and completed the corresponding 6-month training. However, because of his average performance in the police academy assessment, Dean was transferred to the Anti-Crime and Drug Enforcement Division instead of the Robbery Murder Division, Major Crime Unit, before joining the job, and was fooled by Eve, the deputy captain of the Anti-Crime and Drug Enforcement Division, and became an undercover agent who was exported and returned to Nathan's side. Mother Sheila, of Italian descent, is the youngest daughter of a farmer. With the help of Dean's grandfather, she is responsible for processing crops from farms around Los Angeles and makes a living. Intermediary. There is an older brother. The older brother Baker, with brown hair and blue eyes, looks more like an Irishman. He is 25 years old this year. He followed his uncle to become a professional warehouse treasure hunter. He wanders around the United States and rarely comes back. There is a younger brother and a younger sister. The younger brother Thompson is 15 years old this year, 6 years younger than Dean. He is just in the 9th grade. He is a nerd with excellent grades. He is also the one with the most Chinese features among the 4 brothers and sisters. The younger sister Sinclair looks most like her mother. She is a little brown-haired lolly. She is 11 years old this year and is in the 5th grade. She has a quirky personality and is a little rebellious. Family relationship, go up. On Dean's mother's side, there are 2 older brothers. The eldest uncle follows Dean's grandfather to manage the farm, and the second uncle takes Dean's eldest brother to the warehouse industry. The network of people is simple. In simple terms, Dean is from a single-parent family, and his close family members include his mother, older brother, younger sister, grandfather, and 2 uncles. Fortunately, my predecessor moved out early, otherwise it would be a headache for me to deal with these interpersonal relationships. Dean is not good at this. He licked his dry lips and sped up. Dean merged his memories and slept for a day and a night. Now he is thirsty and hungry. He will have to eliminate the hidden dangers left by the robbery later. He must find a restaurant as soon as possible to replenish his energy. After driving for a while, there are more and more vehicles around. Gas stations, motels and restaurants have also appeared around the road. Dean stopped at the rest area, got off the car and bought some food, and continued to drive towards downtown Los Angeles. He didn't care about the threat of Eve, the deputy captain of the Anti-Crime and Drug Enforcement Division. Nathan and others are dead. The stupid things done by his predecessor have no future troubles. But after Dean received the memory, he found that in addition to Nathan and his group who were killed, Nathan's lover might also know about the robbery of the bank armored car. Nathan's lover is called Anna, a hot Latin beauty. The other party is a stripper with an open personality. She also secretly slept with Dean's predecessor several times. The information about the bank's escort car was learned by Anna from a drunkard, and she accidentally told Nathan, which triggered the robbery. The bank's armored car was robbed, and Nathan and others disappeared. As long as Anna is not stupid, she will definitely suspect that the robbery of the armored car is related to Nathan and others. This is a big hidden danger. Politicians' money is hot. If Dean wants to walk freely in the sun and take more than $3 million away, he must solve this hidden danger. If the hidden danger is too big, then Dean will not hesitate to give up the more than $3 million, turn around and become a rookie undercover who cracked the armored car robbery case, and maintain his identity as a 5-star good citizen of Los Angeles. In his previous life, he had enough of a life of displacement and could be killed by the organization at any time. In this life, he just wants to be a good person. The closer the pickup truck gets to downtown Los Angeles, the more congested the road becomes. Los Angeles has a developed economy. During rush hour, the traffic in and out is very exaggerated, forming a long queue of traffic. However, the scenery along the Los Angeles highway is very beautiful. On one side is the blue Pacific Ocean, and on the other side is the steep cliff mountain range. It was evening. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, a row of palm trees swayed with the evening breeze. On the beach not far away, you can still hear the laughter of children playing. Dean leaned on the car window with one hand, feeling the cool breeze, and pulled the wheel with one hand, slowly shuttling through the traffic, looking at the sea along the way, listening to the noise outside, and the unpleasant mood caused by the traffic jam slowly relaxed. Night fell. Dean finally returned to the city. No mistakes, one song, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar, one look. He has a temporary residence here, located in the South District, an old-fashioned apartment built more than 30 years ago. The residents are all first-generation immigrants, and there are a small number of illegal workers. The population is mixed and the environment is not good. The only advantage of the apartment is that it is cheap and you can get your deposit back at any time and leave. Hide the money. It's still early. Dean put on a hooded sweatshirt and drove a pickup truck to prepare the tools he might need tonight. As a professional scavenger, cleaning tools are not limited to firearms. Dean's favorites are nail polish and razor blades. Nail polish can cover fingerprints and will not affect the flexibility of fingers. Razor blades can be found everywhere and thrown away at any time. Even if they are found, it is difficult to analyze useful clues from the blades. Of course, sometimes Dean will use special glue instead of nail polish. Fingerprint detection technology distinguishes fingerprint traces through the secretion of sweat and oil on the fingers. So as long as the skin surface is smooth and does not continue to secrete anything, there is no need to worry about your fingerprints being left behind. Make all preparations. Dean then drove the pickup truck to the strip bar where Anna was. The strip bar where Anna was located is located in downtown Los Angeles. Downtown, it sounds high-end. But this area is actually a real slum area, hiding a large number of drug addicts, illegal workers, bankrupt homeless people, and gang members. It was okay during the day. Once it was night, even patrolmen dared not appear here in uniform. Chaos and freedom are the main theme here. When Dean arrived, it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. The bar had just opened, and there was a long queue outside. There were strong Mexicans maintaining order. There were also groups of drug addicts standing on both sides of the street, which seemed very lively. Dean, wearing a sweatshirt and a mask, drove a pickup truck to an empty alley. After cleaning up the traces on the car, he deliberately opened the door, left a key, and walked to the strip bar. In less than one night, someone would help him deal with the pickup truck, change the license plate and modify it, and remove the last trace he left. The regional division of the United States is very chaotic. States, counties, cities, and towns. For example, counties in each state are regional units that are much larger than cities, often including more than a dozen or even dozens of cities. However, they are not subordinate to each other and have no hierarchical relationship. As long as a city has a municipal government, it is not under the jurisdiction of the county. The municipal government, city council, police department, etc. are all independent. Chapter 4, following. After entering the bar, Dean did not ask anyone for Anna's location. This would leave a trace of his presence. He sat in the corner of the bar with a glass of wine, silently watching the performance on the stage. Under the crimson light, there was an ambiguous intoxication. A group of gentlemen and white-collar workers who were well dressed during the day were now wantonly venting their repressed hearts in a dim and chaotic environment. After waiting for about half an hour, it was around 10 o'clock in the evening. The bar DJ said passionately, "Gentlemen, the next one to come on stage is our beautiful baby Anna. Get your money ready." Under the swaying 5-color lights, a tall beauty, wearing a mask and a revealing stewardess uniform, swayed in a charming dance and slowly walked onto the stage, attracting a group of men sitting in front to cheer wildly and wave small bills in their hands. In the blink of an eye, money rained on the stage. Dean whistled along. "This is a hot girl. She dances really well." The hottie's dancing became more and more hot, and her clothes became thinner and thinner under the banknotes thrown by everyone. When the hottie was left with only a few pieces of paper money to cover her body, she picked up all the banknotes and stuffed them into her stockings, then took off her mask and walked towards the crowd almost naked. "Anna, hey, baby, you are really hot tonight. Come and have a drink with me." The old customers in the audience stretched out their hands with banknotes. Anna had a charming smile on her face, and greeted them with ease. She blew a kiss to the customer who gave the most tips, and then swayed her plump buttocks and walked backstage. The stage time was limited. She had to give other companions time to make money. Watching Anna's back disappear from the stage, Dean took out a small can of nail polish from his pocket slowly, pierced it, and evenly applied it on both palms, slightly dried, and sprinkled the remaining wine on his clothes, then shook his body and walked towards the back door of the bar. In this environment, it is not difficult to kill someone without attracting attention. But Dean was not sure whether Anna had told others about the bank's armored car. This matter involved a congressman with energy. Dean was unwilling to gamble. He really didn't want to continue living like a sewer rat. Therefore, a more suitable environment was needed to deal with this matter. For example, Anna's residence. The bar's dressing room. "Hey, Anna, aren't you staying today? Your Nathan hasn't shown up for a few days." A hot black girl patted Anna's buttocks. "No, I'm busy these days. Bye, Susan." "Okay, bye." Anna changed her clothes, smiled and greeted her companions, and hurried to the back door of the bar. The back door was located in an alley. Several drug addicts huddled in the corner, half asleep and half awake. Turning a corner, Anna also heard several heavy gasps. These were men and women who could only come here to release their nature because the bar's toilet was full. Anna was not surprised. She held the electric shock device in her hand tightly and quickened her pace. As a dancer in a bar, Anna was protected by the bar. Under normal circumstances, few people dared to attack them, but sometimes, drug addicts were not considered human beings, especially when they were addicted to drugs and unconscious. Walking out of the alley, Anna's tense nerves relaxed a little. She didn't like this feeling. But for her daughter's better development, she had to live like this day after day. Anna shuttled through the streets with ease, trying to walk in some monitored areas and stay away from drug addicts and homeless people lying on the streets. 7 or 8 minutes later, a patrol car with flashing red and blue lights drove slowly through the street. Anna breathed a sigh of relief. She had walked out of the chaotic area. It would be much safer where there were patrol officers. Damn Nathan, he borrowed my car and there was no news for 2 days. He wouldn't really rob the bank's armored car, right? Anna stopped under a street lamp, took out a cigarette from her bag, lit it and cursed. Not far away, several streetwalkers dressed in cool clothes, carrying waste bags, were boredly waiting for customers to come. Those are hot girls from Eastern Europe, controlled by the Mao Shuang gang, and they are a group of women who live less freely than she does. They will provide door-to-door service. However, only the young and hot girls are qualified. After all, few people are willing to spend more money to find a group of women who are past their best age. No mistakes. Most of the clients of these streetwalkers are guests who come out of strip clubs. They are stimulated and often have this impulse. Every day, there are also taxi drivers who pull people here to enjoy the different services from Northern Europe. Anna is waiting for these taxis. Not far away. Dean frowned and looked at Anna under the street light. His previous life was very useless. Although he had played poker with Anna several times, he was not familiar with Anna and did not know where she lived. Otherwise, he would not have to follow her so hard. He originally thought that Anna lived in the slums. Now it seems that this is not the case. Dean thought about it, put on a hat and mask, walked out of the shadows, and walked towards Anna. Anna finished smoking a cigarette, but still no taxi came. She threw away the cigarette butt in dissatisfaction, took out her cell phone, and prepared to call her baby daughter, telling her not to wait for her and to go to bed early. Suddenly, she accidentally saw a few street prostitutes, who were looking at her curiously. Anna felt something was wrong and was about to look back. A sharp touch appeared on her neck from behind. Anna stood there in a daze, holding the phone in her hand, motionless. Dean, like an acquaintance, embraced Anna, locked her neck, and took the electric shock device from her hand. Then he lowered his head and whispered in her ear, "Baby, hold me and follow me. I will only rob you of money, not hurt anyone." FK. Anna felt the sharp coldness of the blade on her neck, and could only lean on Dean obediently, like a couple, and was led to the front. Seeing this, the street prostitutes retracted their gazes and smoked and chatted boredly again. After walking about 100 meters, Dean took Anna into an alley in a community. Anna smelled the urine smell in the air, lowered her head, and said uneasily, "Hey, man, my money is in my bag, you can take it all, but don't hurt me, okay?" Dean didn't say anything, just looked at her coldly. No response. Anna felt even more uneasy. Her breathing began to quicken. There was still a dead silence behind her. If it weren't for the arm around her neck, which didn't relax at all, Anna almost thought that the man had left. She became more and more uneasy, and raised her stakes in a hurried tone. "This is the territory of the Moshung gang. They don't like outsiders to kill people here, which will attract the attention of the police. In addition, I am a dancer in Jenny's strip bar, and the woman of the boss of the Big Dog gang. Man, calm down. If you need it, you can enjoy me to your heart's content. I won't resist and I promise to make you feel great." As she said that, she twisted her buttocks. This seemed to touch the people behind her. There was finally movement behind her. Chapter 5. Captain Eve, you don't want to lose this credit, do you? The heavy breathing sprayed on Anna's neck, causing goosebumps on the back of her neck. The blade was slowly pulled out. Anna thought her words had worked, and she couldn't help twisting her body harder to perform, hoping that the other party would not hurt her. The next moment, a big hand suddenly grabbed her hair. Bang! Anna's head was pressed hard against a cold wall, making her almost faint, but the stinging pain from her scalp kept her awake. Anna could only be forced to raise her head and press against the wall to relieve the pain. "I say, your answer, one more word of nonsense, one more lie, 1 second of hesitation, you won't see the sun tomorrow." The low and hoarse male voice made Anna tremble all over. She wanted to nod, but her head couldn't move. She wanted to speak, but because her throat was pressed against the wall, she could only make a painful whimper. Just when her fear reached its limit, the hand pulling her hair loosened. "What's your name?" "Anna. Anna Taylor. My name is Anna Taylor." "Where do you live?" Anna's body trembled and she hesitated. Because her daughter was at a residence. The next moment, Anna felt a pain in her wrist, and suddenly there was a wet feeling flowing out from her left wrist, dripping and dripping on the ground. "This knife is only a few hairs away from your artery. You can continue to hesitate, but the next knife will make you lose the qualification to enjoy everything." The voice was cold and hoarse. Anna was frightened and her whole body went limp, and tears flowed out. The most terrifying thing in the world is not a moment of death, but walking on the tightrope of death, but waiting for death without knowing when it will come. Anna's psychological defense line was completely broken. She leaned on Dean with a half-paralyzed body, sobbing and saying, "Apartment 72, Chinatown, 502. "Which Chinatown?" "There are 2 Chinatowns in Los Angeles." Anna answered very quickly this time, "Los Angeles Plaza, Chinatown in the historic district." "How much do you make a month?" $6,000 or $7,000, but I don't have much savings." Dean seemed to be chatting, from some simple information to privacy, and from privacy to some shameful questions. Anna also gradually became numb and became a machine for answering questions. "How many people did you tell about the Hogan Bank armored car?" 8 or 9, sorry, I can't remember clearly, there were a lot of people at the time, and I drank a little and I can't remember how many people there were. Dean. Fuck. He seemed to see the small amounts of money leaving him. This woman. It's okay if she can't control herself below, but she can't control herself above either. The numb Anna's pupils contracted violently, and her body trembled again. She knew who was coming. The Hogan Bank armored car was robbed, and Nathan and others also lost contact at that time. Anna guessed that it was Nathan and his men who did it. The person behind her must be the guest who leaked the information about the armored car to her. "It's over, I'm dead. Damn Nathan!" Exclamation mark. At this moment, many almost forgotten past events emerged in Anna's mind, and finally fixed on the sweet face of her daughter. She regretted it so much. She regretted her talkativeness. She also regretted that she chose to be a stripper in order to relax, and ended up meeting Nathan. If there is still a chance, she must choose to be an ordinary waitress, as long as she can support her daughter. Dean was thinking silently. But Anna became more and more scared the more she thought about it. She seemed to be aware of her future fate. There was a smell of urine coming from under her body. She was scared to pee. Dean's hand was very steady. His long-term career as a scavenger in his previous life made him indifferent. Next, he only needs to gently draw the blade along the muscle texture, and the concentrated blood will spray out of Anna's throat, making her unable to scream, and the blood will not be everywhere, but will only splash an arc on the wall. Quiet and efficient. But all this is meaningless. When something is known by more than 5 people, it is no longer a secret. The money can no longer be kept. Very good, I like your cooperation. Now, close your eyes, count to 100, then open your eyes, and you can go to the hospital. Dean sighed in his heart, retracted the blade, and turned to leave. He didn't like meaningless killing. I'll count. Anna felt the blade leave her neck, her heart was up and down, her body limply leaned against the cold wall, and she closed her eyes tightly. Dark alley. The oblique shadows stretched. The footsteps faded away. In the cold night wind, you can vaguely hear a woman's trembling counting back to the temporary residence. Dean checked the mechanism he left behind, and after making sure that no outsiders broke in, he fell asleep. Anna is not dead. The more than $3 million left in his hands is a hidden danger. Dean plans to contact Eve tomorrow to see if he can use this credit to exchange for a relaxed nursing department. After all, being a 5-star citizen of Los Angeles also requires considering life. The next morning, Dean was still sleeping. Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door outside the house. Dean woke up from his sleep, pulled out the gun from under the pillow as if by reflex, rolled over to the bottom of the bed, and stared at the door. Dean, are you there? A soft female voice sounded outside the door. Eve? Dean had already integrated the memory of his previous life, and immediately heard that the person outside the door was his boss, Eve, the deputy captain of the drug inspection department. What was she doing here? After thinking about it, Dean did not say anything, but carefully flattened the bedsheet and hid behind the curtains. Outside the house, Eve, dressed in a sweater and wearing a hood, saw that no one answered, looked left and right in the corridor, and after confirming that no one was there, she put on gloves, took out a piece of wire from her pocket, and inserted it into the door frame. Twisted twice gently. There was a slight click. No mistake, one song, one post, one content, 1/6, one book, one bar, one look. The door of this old apartment opened. Eve pushed the door open and glanced at the empty room. Seeing that no one was inside, she walked in and closed the door again. She walked straight to the head of the bed, took out a bag of white substance from her pocket, and stuffed it into the crack of the bed. After doing all this, Eve stood up and prepared to leave. Suddenly, she looked at the bed sheet, took off her gloves for some reason, and reached out to touch it. It was warm. Not good. Eve's heart tightened. The next moment, a black shadow suddenly jumped out from the curtain behind her and hid her neck hard. Eve groaned, her eyes went black, her consciousness was blurred, and she fell heavily on the bed. Dean walked forward expressionlessly, took out the handcuffs from Eve's waist, and roasted her with his hands behind her back. He continued to search for a gun and a rare handheld video recorder, and then reached into the crack of the bed and took out a bag of white substance for inspection. As expected, this is a bag of drugs, weighing about 500 grams, which has reached the standard of heavy punishment. Eve came in quietly, stuffed a bag of drugs, and brought a law enforcement recorder and guns. It was self-evident what she wanted to do. This bitch wanted to slander him. It must be that the other party noticed his perfunctory attitude during the last phone call, so she wanted to use this method to threaten and control him. Dean was already angry last night because a large sum of money flew away. Now he was even more angry. Seeing Eve, who was lying on her stomach, showing signs of waking up, he sneered, helped Eve lean against the head of the bed, picked up the video recorder in his hand, and dragged out 2 large bags of cash from under the bed, opened them and placed them in front of Eve. After more than 10 breaths, Eve suddenly opened her eyes and looked around in panic, but what she saw were 2 open large bags. The large bags were filled with cash. This is, surprise or not, Deputy Captain Eve. Dean's voice came from her side. Eve's eyes flashed with panic. She turned her neck stiffly to the side. Hey, Dean, I think there is some misunderstanding between us. Misunderstanding? Dean smiled gently and stroked her gently. Eve, I risked my life to find the stolen money, but you want to frame me. I am very sad now. Eve saw the dirty hands touching her, but she didn't dare to stop them, for fear of irritating Dean. She squeezed out a charming smile and twisted her body. Dean, that's great, you have made a great contribution, I will definitely help. Shut up. Dean pinched his palm hard and interrupted Eve. Eve gasped in pain. She endured the pain and said, what do you want? Kill me? Then you take this money and are hunted by the police and the congressman, and even your family is affected. You dare to threaten me? Dean threw a big slap on Eve's face. Eve's right cheek became red and swollen at a speed visible to the naked eye. Dean took back his palm and felt much better. Facing Eve's angry eyes, he reached out and opened Eve's handcuffs. What I want to do is up to you. You broke the trust between us with your own hands, which made me feel insecure. If you are willing to rebuild this trust. Dean pointed to the pile of money, the credit is still yours. By the way, you will also gain the friendship of Congressman Snart. I heard that he is very popular now and has a great chance of being elected as the next mayor of Los Angeles. Eve regained her freedom and wanted to find an opportunity to subdue Dean. After hearing his words, her breathing became heavier involuntarily, and even the pain in her cheek was relieved a little. She looked at Dean with a twinkling eye and whispered, so, what do you want me to do? Dean leaned close to her ear and muttered twice. Impossible. Eve pushed Dean away, looking ashamed and angry. Dean sneered and pulled Eve's hair. I can transfer from the anti-crime and anti-drug division with this money without going through you, but what about you? Captain Eve, you don't want to lose this credit, do you? Women like Eve are more like politicians. They will do anything to achieve their goals. Dean doesn't believe she has a bottom line. Sure enough. Eve didn't hesitate for too long after hearing Dean's threat. Dean breathed a sigh of relief. He adjusted the angle of the video camera in his hand to cover the cash and Eve's appearance, striving to make the picture artistic. With this video, Eve wants to turn against him later, but she has to consider the consequences. It's just that although this woman looks good, she is too peaceful, so he doesn't have any ideas. He lost a lot of money. Dean sighed in his heart. He just wanted to be a good person. But this is what happened. It's really difficult. The plot of this article has been greatly changed, and some comments may disappear automatically. Chapter 6, Going Home to Eat Up the Parents. Eve's eyes widened. Dean let out a long breath of depression. Everything was boring. He took out a memory card from the video recorder, threw the machine to Eve, sat aside, leisurely lit a cigarette, and puffed out smoke. Eve rolled her eyes at him, tidied her appearance, and said seriously, okay, Dean, I think we have re-established friendly trust. Now can you tell me about the situation of the stolen money? Of course. Dean crossed his legs, exhaled a puff of smoke, and said comfortably, the matter is very simple. The bank's armored car was robbed by Nathan and his group. Sentinel's family obviously doesn't keep their mouths shut. At Jenny's strip bar, they told the situation of the armored car. After Nathan and others knew about it, they planned this robbery. Eve looked at Dean's face looming in the smoke and couldn't help but be a little absent-minded. Why didn't I realize that this rookie was so manly before? I just don't know how strong he will be in a real fight. Thinking of this, Eve actually had some vague expectations in her heart. She licked her lips and approached Dean with tears in her eyes. Then how did you get all this money? Dean, you know, all of this needs to be reported. Dean keenly felt that there seemed to be something wrong with Eve in front of him. He shrank back uncomfortably, his expression unchanged as he said, the small gang that Nathan belongs to learned about the information of the Morgan Bank's money transporter through the dancers and robbed the money transporter. Coincidentally, Deputy Captain Eve of the Anti-Crime and Anti-Drug Division arranged an undercover agent, trainee police officer Dean, who had just infiltrated this small gang. Nathan and his group fled to the forest cabin with the stolen money, preparing to divide the loot, but because of the uneven distribution of the loot, they killed each other. In the end, all the thieves and bandits died. Unfortunately, the cabin was turned to ashes by the ignited gasoline. And our lucky guy, undercover Dean, brought back the stolen money without any effort and handed it over to his superior, Deputy Captain Eve. What do you think of this report? Eve nodded obediently. It makes sense. That's good. Dean stood up and returned Eve's pistol to her. I will send you the location of the cabin by text message, and I'll leave it to you to deal with it. As for my position change, I'll talk about it after the case is closed. After saying that, Dean was ready to leave. Eve's eyes looked more and more wrong when she looked at him. He didn't want to cause trouble for himself. Dean, wait. Eve quickly stopped in front of Dean. Dean, I know that the life of an undercover agent puts a lot of pressure on you. Dean frowned slightly. What do you want to say? She lifted her hair, looked at Dean with seductive eyes, licked her lips and said, I mean, you need to release the pressure. Good guy. You are not satisfied with it after having it once, and you still want to use it? You are beautiful. Dean, who put on his pants, always spoke tough. He pushed Eve away, who was in a trance, with a serious and upright expression. Deputy Captain Eve, please respect yourself. I am a man who keeps himself clean. After saying that, Dean left the apartment without looking back. FK Eve was ruthlessly rejected, and she was angry and broke her defense directly. She cursed at Dean's back. Leave the apartment. Dean walked aimlessly on the street. He just discovered something very serious and deadly. He had no money. Eve came to suddenly and her skills were good. Dean had no time to do anything, and more than $3 million became all stolen money. The police station pays salaries every half a month. And there is still more than a week before the next salary is paid. He now has less than $200 on his body, and he is a real pauper. I didn't expect that there would be a day when I would be short of money. Dean leaned against a corner of the street with a headache, thinking about whether there was any way to get some money temporarily. He cherishes his current identity as a good citizen. Some money-making methods that will bring hidden dangers are directly past. But except for murder, arson and robbery, Dean can't think of any other ways to make money. He can't be a gigolo. Dean covered his forehead in distress. There is no way to increase income, so he can only cut down on expenditure. He can't afford to rent a house. In addition, he can find Eve to reimburse the previous rent and living expenses. This woman didn't give him the undercover funds before. A penny makes a hero fall. Dean was forced to haggle. After thinking about it, he found that it was still best to rely on his parents for his current situation. Do it when you think of it. Dean took out his cell phone, found Sheila's number and dialed it. No mistake. Dean. Sheila's mother's voice came from the other end of the phone. She must be making breakfast, and the sound of the juicer can be heard. Dean opened his mouth and said unnaturally, Hey, Mom, good morning. No, I'm not feeling well at all. What's wrong? Because my baby son, since the internship, not only moved out, but also didn't call back for many days. Sheila's voice was obviously unhappy. I'm sorry, Mom, you know, I've been busy with a case these days, but now the case is over, I will come back to see you in the evening. Are you sure? Sure. That's good. I will prepare your favorite fried bacon in advance, and don't forget the gift you promised to Thompson and Sinclair. They have been talking about it for a long time. Okay, Mom. Dean hung up the phone, a little absent-minded. In his previous life, he was an orphan. When he was very young, he was taken away from the welfare home by the organization and trained to be a professional scavenger. Family is a very unfamiliar word to him. Dean was nervous but also a little yearning for the meeting in the evening. He took a few deep breaths to calm down, picked up the phone again, sent the location of the forest cabin where Nathan and others were buried to Eve, and emphasized the reimbursement of his undercover expenses. Eve did not reply to the text message, but called directly. She was obviously in a good mood. Dean, the money has been taken back to the police station. Once we find the cabin you mentioned, the case can be closed in 2 days at the earliest. Deputy Captain Eve, congratulations. Thank you, Dean, it's all thanks to you. I want to treat you to dinner in the evening and talk about your desire to reimburse the undercover expenses. Dean rolled his eyes. Does he want to eat? He clearly wants to eat him. He said unhappily, No, Deputy Captain Eve. I haven't been home for a few days because of the undercover work. I'm going to go home to visit. Eve was a little disappointed. Okay, I'll give you 2 days off. When you come back, we'll have a good talk about the reimbursement of undercover expenses. After hanging up the phone, Dean contacted the landlord again. After he agreed not to pay the rent for the next few days, the landlord readily agreed to return the deposit to Dean's account. It was originally a temporary residence. Dean was too lazy to go back and pack those clothes. He also had to buy gifts for his younger brother and sister. But the next phone call completely disrupted his plan. Chapter 7. The first time I saw your sister, you were my good brother. Dean looked at the strange number on his phone and answered it in confusion. Hello, this is Dean. Hello, Dean, I'm Mass's sister Nell. A crying female voice came from the other end of the phone. Mass? When Dean heard this name, a smiling face and an almost forgotten past immediately emerged in his mind. To be precise, this was something from his previous life. Mass was Dean's previous high school classmate, and the two had a very good relationship until Dean went to college, when their contact gradually became less. Dean did hear Mass say that he had a sister named Nell, and he wanted to bring them together at the beginning, but it was because Mass's sister had been studying in the UK since she was a child. So the two had never met. After graduating from high school, Mass became a private detective because of the influence of some detective novels. At the beginning, Mass joked to Dean that if there was a chance, he would help investigate his father's affairs. But in fact, the two had not seen each other for more than 2 years, and only sent text messages to each other during holidays. Could it be that Dean vaguely felt that he was going to get into trouble? Dean? Are you still there? The voice of Mass's sister continued to be heard from the other end of the phone. Dean interrupted his memories. Yes, Neil, I just remembered the good times when I was studying with Mass. Is he okay? No, he is not very well. My brother died 2 days ago. He was shot. I'm sorry. When will he be buried? I want to say goodbye to him for the last time. Dean had no sadness on his face, but his voice was much lower. He was just a fake with a memory of his previous life. It was really difficult for him to empathize with the death of his previous life's friend. Neil sniffed and choked a little. My brother's body is still in the forensic department. They said that we need to wait for the autopsy report to come out before we can take my brother away. She couldn't say anything more and burst into tears on the other end of the phone. Autopsy means that the deceased will be dissected and become incomplete. This behavior is likely to make the sad family members feel even more uncomfortable, but this is also a necessary step in collecting evidence. Dean pursed his lips and said nothing. After Neil's crying subsided, he spoke. I'm sorry about what happened to Mass. Is there anything I can help you with? I want to do something for Mass. No, Dean, I'm glad my brother has you as a friend. Neil calmed down and continued. Actually, I called you today because when I was sorting out my brother's belongings, I found that he left you some things in a letter, but I didn't have time to mail it. If you have time, you can come and get it, or I can mail it to you. Dean had a hunch that Mass's death might be related to those things. Oh. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind does not stop. He inherited the body of his predecessor, and there are some things that he can't avoid. Dean sighed in his heart. Neil, is Mass' address still at the original location? Okay, I'll come and get it myself, and visit Mass by the way. Hang up the phone. Dean called Sheila. Sheila was usually very free, so she answered the phone very quickly. Dean, let me guess, you called me again. Is there something wrong and you can't come back tonight? If so, I promise to bring my whip and come to you in person. Dean. This mother seems a bit fierce. Mom, this is what happened. Dean told Sheila about Mass's situation. Oh, my God, is the Mass you are talking about the Mass you often played with in high school? I didn't expect that something like this would happen to him. Okay, baby, I forgive you. If you need it, I can lend you the car. Can you lend me some more money? Dean climbed up the pole and licked his face. The little cash he had was not enough for accommodation, and his credit card didn't have much limit. Get out. By the way, where are you now? Sheila was fierce on the phone, but she really loved Dean. Not long after the two ended the call, she drove her own car to Dean's location, not only leaving the car keys to Dean, but also bringing a portion of fried bacon and $1,000 in cash. Dean looked at Sheila's back as she left, and his heart was warm. Is this family? So good. Dean is essentially lacking in love. In his world, there is no family affection, no love, no friendship, only cold tasks and cold money. No mistakes. When Dean felt the warmth Sheila gave him, the memories of his previous life in his mind became more empathetic. In his heart, he also began to accept the fact that Sheila was his mother. The slight awkwardness disappeared the moment Sheila came over. Dean put the cut fried bacon in his mouth, started the car, and smiled unconsciously on his face. It's good to have someone care about him. Las Vegas is the largest city in Nevada, hundreds of kilometers away from Los Angeles where Dean is. Dean set off around 10 in the morning and arrived at 2 in the afternoon. As a relatively new city, Las Vegas has very wide roads, many tourists coming and going, and many resort hotels and casinos around. For this place, Dean's first impression was that it was hot. The sun was shining brightly overhead, and the people on the street were wearing cool clothes and riding bicycles leisurely. As he looked around, a sweet-looking brown-haired girl in a t-shirt walked up to Dean. Dean saw that the other person's eyes were red and swollen, and immediately realized that it was Neil. Neil was petite, with a few freckles on her sweet face, and her red and swollen eyes were full of melancholy, which made people feel a little pity in their hearts. Oops, it was a heart-thumping feeling. Dean quickly opened his arms. Neil, it's nice to meet you. In fact, Mass is my best brother. I'm sorry that I wasn't by his side when he got into trouble. As soon as Mass was mentioned, Neil's eyes couldn't help but mist up, and the whole person hugged Dean directly, hugging him tightly, as if this way, he could feel that his brother was still by his side. Dean patted Neil's shoulder gently. The moment he saw Neil, he regarded Mass as a real good brother in his heart. As a brother, Neil, he would definitely take care of him. For a while, Neil let go of her hands. She wiped her eyes a little embarrassedly. Sorry, Dean, when I see you, I can't help but think of my brother. Although we haven't been together for a long time, he treats me very well. It's okay, Neil, I will be your brother from now on, and this will make me feel better. Dean waved his hand generously and asked Neil to get in the car. Because Las Vegas has a large number of tourists and is located in the desert, the residential area is located outside the scenic area, and there are many bungalows, which is relatively more winding. Under Neil's guidance, Dean turned around and finally stopped in front of a 3-story villa. The things and letters that Mass left for him are here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Letter. After getting off the car, Dean was a little surprised to see the single-family villa in front of him. In his memory, Mass' parents divorced early, and Mass lived with his father. His family was not rich. Does a private detective make so much money? Neil led the way and introduced, "This is my mother's house. After I came back, my mother gave the house to me. I thought the villa was too big, so I invited my brother to live with me. However, he often travels outside and rarely comes back, so most of the time, I live here alone. Does your mother not like Mass?" Dean was surprised. From what Neil said, Mass had the opportunity to live in this house only after she came back. Neil shook her head with some sadness. "My brother and I are actually half-sisters." Dean had never heard Mass say this. He closed his mouth and stopped talking. The villa has 3 floors. Mass lives on the 3rd floor. The two took the elevator to Mass' room. The room was large, but it looked messy. There were many old photos hanging on the wall, and there was a writing board opposite the bed, on which some mind map analyses that had not been wiped off were left. Next to the writing board, there were several bookshelves filled with books. Opposite the bookshelves, there were a pile of videotapes and a projector. Neil pointed to a pile of things in the corner of the room. "Dean, these are the things your brother left for you. Take your time to look at them. I'll go get you some drinks. Ice water will do, thank you." Dean nodded, and after watching Neil leave, he walked to the pile of things. These were some documents. On the top of the documents was a letter without a stamp. The recipient was Dean, and he also left his phone number, and the address was his mother's residence. The letter was sealed, and it could be mailed out as long as a stamp was affixed. What a pity. Mass didn't have this chance. Dean took a deep breath, picked up the letter, and after making sure that the envelope had not been opened, he took out the letter inside. There was not much content on the letter. "Dean, do you remember our promise? You are my best brother. I said that if there is a chance, I will help you keep an eye on your father's affairs. In fact, after I had a certain network of contacts, I bribed the people in the Los Angeles Forensics Department and collected some information about your father's death. I found something strange through the photos of your father's body. There is something wrong with a death report given by the medical examiner. I want to find that medical examiner. But the medical examiner who is responsible for your father's autopsy resigned and disappeared shortly after your father's death. There's a big problem with your father's death. I used my connections, but I couldn't find him. I was afraid that you would be sad. So I never told you about this. But, Dean, you are lucky. I met him. He is in Las Vegas. I have already grasped his situation. Dean, my best brother, I believe that when you get this letter, I have already dealt with the other party and found out the truth about your father's death. Haha. I seem to have seen your excitement. This is a big surprise, right? Your good brother, Mars. Dean was silent after reading the letter. There was a good brother in the previous life. He put the letter away, squatted down, and checked other documents. These are all information about Dean's father, including his crime-solving style, interpersonal relationships, achievements in the police station, and the last case, some colleagues involved, forensic information and a bloody photo. The protagonist in the photo is Dean's father. He lies on his back on the cold autopsy table, with 8 tiny bullet holes on his back, dense and deadly. Seeing the appearance of the bullet holes, Dean's pupils shrank slightly. During the flight, due to factors such as high rotation, after hitting the human body, the entrance trauma is often small, while the internal injuries are splashed and torn. The surface of the gunshot wound will also present different states depending on the type of bullet and the flight distance. Dean has handled many corpses in his previous life and is very familiar with these. According to the information shown in the photo, Dean's mind immediately appeared a picture. An unknown gunman stood behind his father, no more than 5 meters away, and took advantage of his unpreparedness to fire 8 shots in a row. The other party's purpose was to kill. Such a close distance, but it took so many shots. Dean guessed that the gunman's shooting skills were very poor, and he knew his father. No wonder Mass said he found something strange. An experienced forensic doctor, seeing such injuries, would guess that Dean's father was shot at close range, but the result given by the police was that Dean's father died in the line of duty, and the murderer was killed by the other police officers who rushed over while escaping. Dean's memory of these things is a little vague. Mass didn't know through what channel he got all these materials, but it must have taken a lot of effort. Dean found the forensic doctor's information, memorized the other party's appearance and information, and then stuffed the information back into the file bag. Just then, dong dong dong, there was a knock on the door. Neil stood at the door with a glass of ice water. Dean, the water is here. The door was not closed. Neil knocked on the door deliberately to remind him that she cared about his privacy. She was a well-educated and good girl. Thank you. Dean stood up, took the ice water, and drank it all in one gulp. The coolness entered his stomach. Dean felt that all the pores in his body were stretched out, and the dryness in his body dissipated. In this weather, you have to drink a cold drink. Put down the water glass. Dean looked into Neil's eyes and said seriously, Neil, do you know what Mass has been busy with recently? Neil shook her head. Private detective is a profession that values privacy. My brother never told me these things. If he hadn't encountered an accident, I wouldn't have come to his room. She seemed to think of something, and her red and swollen eyes looked straight at Dean. Dean, do you suspect that my brother's death is actually related to the case he recently investigated? After that, Neil looked at the file bags behind Dean. She didn't look at these files, but called Dean because the envelope had Dean's name, phone number and address. Dean shook his head. Not necessarily, otherwise these materials would not be left for you to give to me, but I still need to understand. If Mass died because of these materials, then now both of us are in an unsafe situation. He was not sure whether Mass's death was due to contact with a forensic doctor. These need to be understood before a conclusion can be drawn. Neil said solemnly, Dean, what do you need me to do? Take me to see Mass' body. After Mass was shot, the body was taken to the morgue of the forensic department by the Las Vegas police. This is a necessary procedure. Dean looked up the address of the forensic department and took Neil there. Not long after, a square building appeared in front of the two. Dean parked the car and did not rush to get out. Instead, in Neil's surprised eyes, he took out an unnumbered M1911 from the base of the car and examined it carefully. So lonely, crying. I wanted to get some delicious food to comfort myself, but I didn't have the strength. It was soft, eh? Chapter 9, Unlucky Mass. Dean, what are you doing? Neil watched Dean dismantle the gun skillfully and couldn't help asking. Some necessary measures. Dean checked the gun in his hand, hid it on his body, and patted Neil's shoulder. Let's go see your brother. Neil was a little nervous because of Dean's behavior. She was worried that Dean would do something irrational. But thinking of what Dean said before, Neil gritted her teeth and chose to follow behind Dean. The forensics department is generally used by the police to identify evidence and perform autopsies, but it is not used to store evidence, so the guard's review is not strict. Neil showed her ID and registered at the guard. The guard picked up the landline and made a call inside. Wait for a moment. A man in a white coat and a mask came out and greeted the two people waiting at the door. I am Henry, forensic doctor. Are you Mass's family members? Dean and Neil nodded. Come with me. We were just about to call you. Mass's examination has been completed. You can take him away, Henry said as he led the way. Forensic Henry, is there any result for my brother's shooting? Neil realized that the police had already found a result for this shooting. Henry glanced at Neil's red and swollen eyes, and hesitated. According to regulations, he cannot disclose case information before the police close the case. But this is the victim's family, and she is a sweet-looking girl. Dean has been observing the other party. Seeing this, he hurriedly said, Forensic Henry, my sister has been very sad about Mass's death. If Mass's case has a result, she will at least feel better. Okay, you are right. Henry stopped and faced the two people. The police have caught the murderer. Your brother was unlucky. He carried a large amount of money on him. As a result, he was accidentally seen by a drug addict. The other party had just lost a sum of money, and then he had an idea. O'Neill heard that the murderer had been caught. She covered her face with relief and sadness and sobbed. Dean quickly held her in his arms and whispered to comfort her. Forensic Dr. Henry did not urge her. He leaned against the wall and sighed. In fact, this situation is not uncommon in Las Vegas. One of my predecessors was also affected by the shooting. Damn the freedom of guns. Dean was standing next to him. Hearing this, his heart moved. Forensic Dr. Henry, besides Mass, are there any other victims? Henry nodded. The shooting happened in an alley. Mass walked in at the time. The drug addict who was following him thought it was a good opportunity and followed him in. As a result, my predecessor lived there. He happened to go out and was hit in the forehead by the drug addict's stray bullet. This is really unfortunate. Dean sighed, as if remembering the passing of life. He looked at Henry sincerely. Forensic Dr. Henry, your predecessor was affected by Mass's incident and died innocently. If possible, Neil and I would like to see his body together later to express our apologies. Henry shrugged. Of course. Got a positive answer. Dean patted Neil's shoulder and said, Neil, if Mass was still alive, he would definitely want you to be strong. We still need to arrange Mass's funeral. Don't delay Henry's time. Neil took a deep breath, wiped her eyes, and nodded vigorously. The three of them took the elevator to the morgue on the second floor underground. There was also a security booth here. After Henry greeted the other party, he swiped the card to open the door of the morgue, and then took Dean and the others to a corpse covered with a white cloth. On the feet of the corpse, there was a sign with Mass' name. Dean asked Neil to wait there, and he went forward alone to lift the white cloth. Under the white cloth was Mass' familiar face, but his face was bloodless and his expression was still as hideous as when he died. The other party could no longer smile. Dean looked down. Mass' chest and limbs had a lot of sutured wounds. Those were bullet holes, and there were traces of dissection around them. There were more than a dozen bullet holes scattered around, but there was only one fatal wound on the chest. The shooter was very amateur. The other party was probably excited and panicked at the time, as if he was under stress, and he didn't even aim and emptied the magazine directly. This was very different from what a professional killer did. Dean was relieved. He was most afraid that Mass was investigating his father's case, but was discovered by the unknown organization, and then sent someone to eliminate Mass. If that happened, not only Mass, but also he and Neil would be in danger, and even Dean's current family would be affected. Reality is not a movie. In his previous life, he was a peripheral scavenger trained by an organization, and he knew that facing such a force alone would definitely be a dead end. Now it seems that Mass was just unlucky. This made Dean feel relieved, but also a little guilty. After all, Mass was carrying a large amount of money, and it was very likely that he was going to see the forensic doctor. His death was still related to himself. Good brother, don't worry, I will take good care of your family. Dean collected his thoughts, put down the white cloth, and waved to Neil. Neil, wait until we contact the funeral company and dress him up, then you can say goodbye. Neil nodded silently. She knew that her brother's current appearance must not be very peaceful. Seeing that Neil did not refuse, Dean looked at Henry, the forensic doctor, and said, "Henry, the forensic doctor, I want to see the innocent person who was affected." Henry pointed to the bed next to Mass. "He is my senior, a big shot in the school, and used to be a forensic doctor in the Los Angeles Police Department, but he resigned 8 years ago. I never thought that one day, I would personally perform an autopsy on him. Damn, I didn't even know that he settled in Las Vegas, otherwise." Dean didn't care about the other parties chattering. He walked to the body of the forensic doctor, bowed solemnly, and glanced at the ring on his foot. Santoni Gal. It was the forensic doctor that Mass investigated. Dean confirmed his guess. Mass got the address of medical examiner Santoni, and then used some means to coerce and bribe him, so that he chose to meet. As a result, an accident happened. Dean bowed, walked forward with a serious expression, lifted the white cloth, and revealed the face of Santoni Gal. The other party died very unpeacefully. A bullet went straight through his forehead and died of a headshot. "Hey, you can't." Henry wanted to stop Dean's behavior, but he heard Dean said piously, "May the Lord bless your soul to rest in peace, amen." Seeing this, Henry stopped. It is always good to have a believer pray for his old senior. Dean pretended to pray and took Neil to collect Mass' body. This kind of place often cooperates with some funeral companies. With Henry's enthusiastic recommendation, Neil, who is not short of money, chose a large company to take charge of Mass's funeral. Neil only needs to contact Mass's friends to attend the funeral. The murderer has been brought to justice. Neil is in a much better mood. When leaving, Neil looked at Dean curiously. "Are you a Christian?" "Of course." Dean smiled faintly. "I am the Lord's shepherd, and I often send some lost lambs to feel the Lord's teachings." "Then can you preside over my brother's burial?" Neil lowered her head. "My father doesn't care about my brother Mass's life or death. He re-established a family and said he would not come to see my brother. I am my brother's only relative in America." Dean was stunned, and then gave Neil a hug. "Of course, I am also Mass's relative, and yours." Neil's eyes were filled with tears, and she hugged Dean tightly. "Dean, you are so nice. I am very glad that my brother has a friend like you." The date of Mass's funeral was agreed. Dean said goodbye to Neil and drove to Santoni Gal's residence. Santoni Gal was the forensic doctor who performed an autopsy on his predecessor's father and forged the autopsy results. Although it has been confirmed that Mass's death was just an accident. But Dean was not sure whether Mass had revealed his purpose when he contacted the other party. Once it was exposed, the long-term stable life of himself and his family would be broken, and Neil would also be in danger. Without finding out the truth, Dean was worried. Chapter 10 Unexpected Discovery. Clean up the traces left by Mass. Dean said goodbye to Neil, reminded her to be careful recently and call him if she has anything, and then left alone. Santoni Gal's residence is located in a dilapidated alley. This place is a bit shabby. The only advantage is that the land is large. The alley is actually the wall of the surrounding houses and yards. It is connected in all directions, and the surrounding buildings are similar. People who are not familiar with it can easily get lost in it. Santoni Gal's residence is located at the end of an alley here. There is another road over there. Dean is standing at another section of the road at this time, pretending to light a cigarette, silently observing Santoni's residence across the road. Outside Santoni's yard, there is a small door connected to the alley. On the other side of the small door is the garage door next to the main house. The main entrance of the house is located inside this community. This residence is close to the street, back by the alley, and has a community inside. Whether entering or escaping, or observing the surroundings, it is an excellent location. Santoni Gal's identity is indeed not simple. Dean saw that there was no one around and was about to go over. Suddenly, Dean's eyes fixed, and he turned around and walked to the trash can beside him, crushed his cigarette butt, and walked to the other end of the street again. Someone is watching him. Someone is in Santoni's house, observing him with a telescope. Fortunately, the other party's technique is amateurish, so he noticed it. Damn it. Dean cursed in his heart, hoping that his performance just now did not alert the other party. At this time, in the attic of Santoni Gal's house, a sturdy man with a brown complexion put down the small telescope in his hand and looked at his companion, who is quickly rummaging through the sundries in the attic. "Bill, hurry up and find the formula hidden by that bastard Santoni as soon as possible." "Man, I'm in a hurry too. But now it seems that we can't find that thing. Maybe Santoni didn't leave any formula at all. Anyway, I won't record such a thing. The companion threw down a bundle of magazines, held his waist and stood up, looking at the burly man with a grin. Santoni is dead. Without his intoxication, the boss will definitely send us to swim in the sea. Do you prefer to tie big stones or mix them into cement? I like cement, because… FK, shut up. I don't want big stones or cement. I want the damn formula. Bill shrugged at his furious companions and said, Toss, we have searched everywhere except the garage. You know that the formula of the drug is in Santoni's mind, but he is dead. He was shot dead by a robber's bullet when he went out. Now the inventory has not been sold out, and the boss has not received the news of Santoni's death. He didn't say the next words. But the two have been partners for many years, and Toss knows what his companions mean. The boss has a violent personality. Once the drug addicts in their territory are gone, they will be snatched away by other gangs. The loss is not just the profit of selling drug. Even if the two are old men in the gang, they will definitely die at that time. The only way is to escape. Escape to a place where the gang cannot reach. But thinking of the horror of the boss, Toss, who is as strong as a black bear, shuddered. He choked on his saliva and said hesitantly, Bill, I heard from Finney that our gang was just chosen by a big organization to be the agent of Nevada. There are also gangs in other states that have people like Santoni joining to specialize in making intoxicants. Maybe we can think of other ways. Oh, Finney. Bill shrugged his crotch exaggeratedly. You actually slept with that old woman. How does it feel? Finney is the accountant of the gang. Usually, the payment for intoxicants is regularly handed over to her, and through various means, it is legalized and then remitted into the gang's account. I'm talking about business. Toss stared at Bill with dissatisfaction and clenched his fists. Bill spitted at Toss's feet with disdain. Dude, use your pig brain to think about it. The stock of intoxicants can only support 1 week at most. You want to use 1 week, without knowing any information, to snatch a pharmacist who can make intoxicants from gangs in other states. If he didn't need Toss as a thug on the way to escape, he didn't want to talk nonsense with a stupid pig at all, and he would have run away by himself long ago. Then what do you say we should do? Toss also knew that he was a little whimsical, and he loosened his fist helplessly. Seeing that he had convinced Toss, Bill's eyes flashed with a cold light. I know a master in making fake certificates in Los Angeles, and all the information used is real, but it costs a lot of money. He looked at Toss. The other party actually dealt with the old woman Finney. This is really a pleasant surprise. Finney has the payment for the goods that has not yet been legalized. After the two briefly discussed the escape plan in the attic, they no longer had the energy to search for the intoxicant formula that did not exist at all. They were too lazy to even deal with the traces of searching left behind, and they were too lazy to look at the remaining independent garage, and left in a hurry. They didn't notice. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6 to 9 book, 1 forum. Take a look. In a corner of the community, a young man wearing a hood and a mask was watching them leave silently. Dean memorized the appearance and some of their physical features in his mind, waited for a moment, then walked through the green belt of the community, walked into Santoni's residence through the half-open door. Santoni's house has 3 floors. 2 floors of buildings and 1 attic. The first floor is the hall and kitchen, with very few things, and it looks very empty. There are 4 rooms on the second floor, 2 bedrooms, a study, and a bathroom. The attic on the 3rd floor is piled with a lot of sundries. However, everything here has signs of being searched, and 9 out of 10 times, it was done by the 2 people just now. Dean didn't touch anything. After a brief observation, he came to the independent garage attached to the side of the house. Previously on the road, he found something wrong with the garage. The United States is a vast country with a sparse population. Many places are uninhabited. Public transportation is not well developed. Airplanes are the main means of transportation, and cars are used for short distances. In this place, life would be very inconvenient without a car. The passage outside Santoni's garage has accumulated a thick layer of dust, but there are traces of opening on both sides of the garage door. This means that Santoni has not driven in and out of the garage for a long time, but this garage has been used, and the outer wall of the garage, located on this side of the house, has no less than 3 air purifiers hanging on it. So, the question is, what is this garage used for? Dean walked around the garage and found that there was a hidden sewage outlet buried near the sewer, and he had a guess in his mind. It is hidden and needs sewage discharge, and considering Santoni's profession as a forensic doctor and his high education, Dean suspected that this garage was either a drug manufacturing den or a place used by Santoni to make some human specimens or even destroy corpses. The garage door has a built-in switch and an external remote control. Dean took out a screwdriver from his pocket, unscrewed the switch cover, pulled it off, and poked it twice with a screwdriver. Sizzle sparks flashed. A slight rolling sound was heard. The garage door slowly rose and finally stopped at a height of about 1 meter. This is not a door for vehicles to enter and exit. Dean took a deep breath, took out his pistol, squatted down, and looked inside. The next moment, even Dean, who had a big heart, was still shocked by the scene in front of him. His pupils dilated and he was stunned for a moment. This is Chapter 11 Muddy Waters. A thick black cannon pointed directly at the gate. Facing the black muzzle, Dean felt dizzy. This is a cannon with a caliber as thick as his head. The base of the cannon was locked by a heavy truck, occupying most of the garage. In the dim environment, it was like a steel monster, entrenched here, waiting for its prey to rush in without knowing whether to live or die. On one side of the heavy truck, a thick canvas was opened, revealing neatly stacked wooden boxes inside, which looked like boxes of ammunition. Who is Santoni? Dean came back to his senses, feeling uneasy. He was a little afraid to enter the garage. A cannon of this caliber would definitely be a killer even in war, but at this moment it was like a toy, hidden in Las Vegas, a gambling city with many tourists. Dean understood that Santoni's identity was definitely more troublesome than he had guessed. At least, the big organization he was in his previous life could not easily get such a weapon of war, let alone quietly bring such a weapon of war into a tourist city of a big country. It's not that it can't be done. It's just that there are too many things involved. For a moment, Dean was in a dilemma. He turned his head and looked at the door switch that had been destroyed by him, feeling bitter. If he wanted to open the door, he had to destroy the line. He didn't even think about hiding the traces. But who would have thought that such an important thing would be left in such a garage without any precautions? Is there any sense of confidentiality? It's a scam. Dean knew that once he was involved with such a force, endless troubles and pursuits would be waiting for him, and he would have no power to resist. Calm down, calm down. Dean took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. He had left traces of his presence. Things have calmed to this point. He must downplay his existence. He gritted his teeth, bent over and walked into the garage, and checked it carefully. The garage was a bit shabby, with some wires exposed. There were no signs of repair. It must have been a long time ago, and no hidden wires were found. Dean breathed a sigh of relief. At least it meant that there was no surveillance here. Otherwise, even if he covered his appearance, it would be difficult to hide his figure. In addition, the death of Mas and Santoni would greatly increase the possibility of his exposure. He carefully passed the heavy trucks pulling heavy artillery and came to the big boxes. The boxes were not locked. Dean opened one to check. A strange smell emanated from the box, causing Dean, who was wearing a mask, to hold his breath subconsciously. This smell was very pungent, as if it was covering up other smells. He held his breath and looked inside the box. He was surprised to find that there were no shells inside, but some equipment for chemical experiments. These things. Dean looked at the cleaned equipment, closed the box again, looked at the traces left on the lid of the box, and then thought of the sewage outlet and the hanging air purifiers, and had a guess. These are used to make drugs. This made Dean even more confused. The drug manufacturing side and the heavy artillery on the battlefield are all hidden in the garage of this residential area. Santoni, who is he? Suddenly, Dean remembered the two people who had left Santoni's residence before. The two searched Santoni's house, but did not touch some obviously valuable objects. They left empty-handed. Obviously, they were not thieves, but people who were paying close attention to Santoni. So they knew the news of Santoni's death and took the opportunity to find what they needed. But they did not come to check the garage. These two people are more like Santoni's collaborators. They know something about Santoni, but not completely. And they are in a hurry to leave because of time pressure. For example, cooperative drug trafficking. Santoni is responsible for drug manufacturing, and the two are responsible for trafficking. As soon as Santoni died, these two people ran over to look for drugs that Santoni might have hidden. Dean patted his head. Who cares what the relationship between those two people and Santoni is? With these two scapegoats, why should he bother? A way to escape flashed through his mind quickly, and he returned to Santoni's residence. After carefully checking the traces, he left with ease. About half an hour later, several police cars surrounded Santoni's residence. At the same time, several heavyweight newspapers stationed in Las Vegas also received anonymous calls. After discovering that the police's actions were a bit wrong, they swarmed in like sharks smelling blood. A shocking news spread quickly through the internet before the Las Vegas executives could react. Also spread was Santoni's information and the photo of the heavy artillery. The whole state of Nevada was in chaos. "Mom, your fried bacon is still so delicious." Dean patted his belly with satisfaction and gave a thumbs up to the white woman across the table. "Haha, baby, is your mouth filled with honey today?" The white woman, Dean's mother, Sheila, was very satisfied with Dean's reaction. She poured all the remaining bacon on the plate into Dean's plate, causing the thin young man next to him to roll his eyes. He was Dean's younger brother Thompson. He had black hair and brown eyes, a thin figure, and wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses. He had a refined temperament that was out of place here. A little brown-haired girl sitting next to Thompson also had a look of dissatisfaction on her cute face. She muttered to Sheila, "Sheila, Dean is not good at all. He doesn't keep his word. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1-6, 1-9, one book, one forum, one look. Hey, my dear sister, you said you missed me a lot before." "No." The little girl shook her finger. "Dean, no gift, no sister." Haha. Sheila was amused by her little daughter's words and winked at Dean. "Dean, I reminded you not to forget the gift." Dean put down his fork awkwardly. "Sinclair, I just saw off a good friend of mine and I was not in a good mood. I forgot about it. I'm sorry." After he misled others, he rushed back and didn't remember these little things. Dean's words made Sheila react. She stepped forward and gave Dean a hug. "Baby, it's not your fault. You came back from Las Vegas and drove all the way. I'm afraid you are very tired now. Go to sleep after eating." Dean nodded. Thompson, who was standing aside, heard Las Vegas and his eyes lit up. He said to Dean excitedly, "Dean, I saw the news today that a thief in Las Vegas found a 210mm heavy artillery in a garage in a residential area while stealing. Is this true?" Dean shook his head. "I don't know. Anyway, I didn't hear about this before I left. Could it be some tabloid reporting it randomly?" "Impossible. This is a report just issued by several large newspapers, and there are pictures on the internet." Thompson raised his glasses. "I heard that the owner of the garage was once a forensic doctor in the forensic department of our Los Angeles Police Department. I dare to conclude that there must be a shocking secret hidden in it." "Maybe." Dean shrugged and lowered his head to eat again. After dinner, Dean lay on the bed, and his tense nerves finally relaxed. The matter of Santoni was over. The only hidden danger was the connection between Mass and Santoni. He made such a big fuss and exposed everything to the sun, hoping that the forces behind Santoni would lose their footing, muddy the waters, and cover up Mass's traces. There is no surveillance around the public telephone booth where I called the police, and I also used some means to change my voice. My predecessor and his family have lived in peace for 8 years after his father's death. Everything will be fine." Dean comforted himself. Thinking about it, Dean slowly closed his eyes and fell into deep sleep. On the other side, Eve walked out of the director's office with a smile on her face. Thanks to the big news in Las Vegas, the Los Angeles Police Department and the judiciary have accelerated the trial process of the bank armored car robbery case, preparing to form a sharp contrast with Las Vegas. In other words, the bank armored car robbery case can be declared closed. Eve returned to the office, finally unable to suppress her joy, clenched her fists, and sent this message to Dean. Almost at the same time, Dean was dreaming, and a line of information flashed through his mind. Bank armored car robbery case solved. Experience value plus 350, L0 L3, plus 3 attribute points, plus 3 skill points. PS, tool panel, no intelligence, only provides rewards after solving the case, does not promote the plot, does not issue tasks, is just a dead tool. Tool panel. No consciousness. No tasks issued. Does not promote the plot. It is just a tool for solving cases and rewarding rewards. Chapter 12 Detective Panel. Buzz. The alarm on the cell phone rang. Dean squinted his eyes, stretched out his hand to turn off the alarm, squinted for a while, stretched his waist, opened his eyes reluctantly, and stared at the ceiling in a daze. I haven't slept so comfortably in a long time. I just had a very strange dream. In the dream, I got a strange detective panel. Just like in the game, as long as you solve the case, you can gain experience points and upgrade the character level. After the character is upgraded, you can get fixed attribute points and skill points. The attribute points can enhance the spirit and physique of the character, and the skill points can enhance the skills mastered by the character. It is very simple and crude. Dean recalled the details of the dream and couldn't help curling his lips. I guess the unknown organization that Santoni is in has put too much pressure on me, so I had such a strange dream. How could there be any detective panel in reality? The voice was not finished. A simple face frame appeared in Dean's mind. Detective panel, character, Dean level 3/0/400, spirit 11, human race, peak average is 10, strength 11, human race, peak average is 10, speed 9, human race, peak average is 10, endurance 8, human race, peak average is 10, skills, pistol mastery, L2, blowing needle, L2, mating, L3, ordinary passenger car driving, L1, torture, L2, stealing, L1. Attribute points. 3 skill points. 3 completed cases. 1. Los Angeles County Morgan Bank armored car robbery case, details. Dean kept a dull face, looking at the panel in his mind stupidly, and was a little unresponsive for a while. Dream, is it true? After a long time, Dean came back to his senses, and his heart moved. The next moment, the panel in his mind disappeared. Another thought moved. The panel that disappeared reappeared. Dean finally confirmed that he seemed to have a detective panel. Last night's dream was true. I'm rich. Dean clenched his fists, stood up and locked the door, sat back on the bed, and prepared to study the panel carefully. He found that as long as he focused his consciousness on a certain position on the panel, a related explanation would emerge, which was very humane. For example, the 4 attributes: mental, memory, observation, logical analysis, strength, flesh and blood strength, bone strength, speed, flesh and blood explosion, bone strength, nerve reaction, endurance, flesh and blood energy decomposition, heart, liver, spleen, lungs and kidney strength. In short, the mental attribute is not equal to IQ, but a comprehensive value. The other 3 physical attributes are the same. They are interrelated and there is no way to add points to one attribute. The numerical anchor point of each attribute is taken from the average of the peak values of all humans in the world. Under normal exercise, the peak period of human physique is generally concentrated between the ages of 28 and 32. The average value of 10 is taken from this range. But because of the differences in innate constitution and acquired nutrition and training between people, the differences between individuals will be relatively large. The average value can only be used as a reference. Dean's current attributes are not bad among his peers, as he has good athletic cells and well-developed limbs. After all, he is only 21 years old and has not yet reached the peak of his body. Dean shifted his attention from the attributes to his skills. He has many skills, but they are basically L1, application, a small number of L2, skilled application, and only one L3, professional application, skill. Level 1 skills are all daily skills that Dean often uses, such as driving, camouflage, lock-picking, tracking, etc. He knows, but not proficient. Level 2 skills are Dean's real bread-and-butter skills, such as pistol mastery, needle blowing, etc. Compared with ordinary people, he is already an elite in these aspects. Although Dean's bread-and-butter skills are only level 2, but when used together, he could mix well in the scavenger industry in his previous life. So this level is not bad. Level 3 skills represent professional proficiency in the corresponding skills, and he is a leader in this area. Dean only has one level 3 skill, mating, L3. Oh my goodness. A professional elite in mating. This is a bit embarrassing. This broken panel is slandering me. In addition, the skill panel is also a bit bloated. He only gets 1 skill point when he levels up. Many skills are ordinary life skills. There is no need to appear on the panel. If only the detective panel could be simpler. Dean thought to himself. The next moment, the detective panel in his mind changed. Detective panel, character, Dean level 3/0/400, spirit 11 strength, 11 speed, 9 stamina, 8 skills, Pistol Mastery, L2, Torture, L2, Blow Needle, L2. Attribute points. 3 skill points. 3 completed cases, omitted. Dean nodded. He felt much more comfortable now. After figuring out the information on the detective panel, Dean put his consciousness on the attribute points and skill points. Attribute points can enhance physical fitness out of thin air. Skill points can directly improve the skills that Dean has already mastered. Simple and crude. Dean licked his lips and tried to add a point to the strength attribute. The information on the panel changed. Attribute points. 32. Strength. 1112. The next moment, a stream of heat appeared out of thin air in Dean's body, washing his muscles and bones from head to toe, and the whole process took less than 3 seconds. Is that all? Dean clenched his fists in confusion and found that his strength seemed to be a little stronger, but not obvious. He took off his pajamas and walked to the mirror. It looked much more obvious now. Dean's already strong upper body was now more symmetrical. He simply took off his pants and added a point to the speed attribute. Attribute points. 21. No mistake, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar, take a look. Speed. 910. The same process. The heat flow appeared out of thin air and flowed through his body. But Dean found that the heat flow that appeared this time was more reflected in some tissues in his flesh and blood, and it was obvious that the focus of strengthening was different. The point addition was finished. Dean clearly felt the difference this time. His skeleton was large, strong but not agile enough. In many sports, he seemed a little clumsy and could not do some movements like the Asian squat. Now it was different. It seemed that his body had lost some shackles and his flexibility increased greatly. Some movements that he could not do before could now be done easily, and his reaction speed and the movements of his hands and feet were significantly improved than before. Why is the difference between strength and speed so big after increasing 1 attribute point? Dean's eyes were puzzled. He was still in the exploratory stage, looking for which attribute point to increase with the highest cost effectiveness, so he had more thoughts on research and exploration. Add a little more strength and see. The last attribute point disappeared. Dean's strength attribute reached 13, which was 30% higher than the average value of ordinary people. This time, the heat flow was much larger and hotter, hot and itchy, and it lasted for a full 5 seconds before disappearing. Dean's body shape also changed. I seem to be taller. My muscles are smaller, but harder. I feel full of strength. The attribute improvement doesn't seem to be in percentage, but far exceeds this value. Dean touched his hard pectoralis major, lowered his head and pulled open his crotch, took a look, and nodded with satisfaction. He reacted. In fact, the panel has already told Dean the answer. Strength, speed, and endurance are all part of the physique, interrelated, and not independent. So every time the attribute points increase, whether it is strength, speed, or endurance, it is actually a comprehensive enhancement of all aspects of the body, but the focus is different. Typical 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Dean grinned. Simply move the body. Dean put his eyes on the skills. There is no need to worry about this. The discovery in Las Vegas put him under great psychological pressure. Now that he has the opportunity to become stronger, the first choice is naturally to increase his fighting methods. His killing methods in his previous life tended to rely on tools, such as guns and blowpipes. His physical fighting methods were not strong, and he did not even form corresponding skills. Dean directly added skill points to pistol mastery. Skill points. 32. Pistol mastery, L2 L3. A memory appeared in Dean's mind out of thin air. In the dark background, he kept picking up the pistol like a machine, aiming at the moving target in various environments. His pistol became more and more stable and accurate. Finally, within 20 meters, the gun hit the target and shattered it, and every bullet hit the target. The memory ended. Pistol mastery L3. Years of hard training allow you to maintain high-precision pistol shooting within a range of 20 meters in various environments. Dean looked down at his hands. The hands are still the same hands. But the implanted memory is as if he had experienced it himself. Now his pistol shooting skills are definitely not worse than his instructor in his previous life. The opponent is an old-fashioned killer who has been active for more than 10 years. Continue. Dean rubbed his swollen and painful head, took a deep breath, and chose to continue to improve his pistol skills. Skill points. 20. Pistol mastery L3 Pistol mastery. This time, He actually deducted 2 skill points directly, and the level of his pistol mastery did not change from L3 to L4, but became pistol proficiency. The implanted memory changed from target practice to Dean holding different types of pistols in his hands, fighting with real people in various environments. There were a lot of implanted memories this time. It took Dean a long time to wake up from his drowsy state. He looked at the panel as soon as possible. Pistol proficiency. Years of fighting allow you to quickly master any pistol and maximize its performance. Enemies within 50 meters will die if they appear in front of you. After reading the introduction, Dean choked and took out his hidden M1911 from under the pillow. As soon as he got the gun, Dean immediately found something different. In his mind, the parameters of the gun appeared quickly, and through the weight and appearance, he analyzed the approximate service life of the gun and the possible problems. Dean was sure that if he fired a few more bullets, he could easily control the pistol and achieve high-precision shooting. Awesome! Dean held the cold pistol in his hand and felt an unprecedented sense of security and confidence. The panel will not appear often. Skill level setting. Level 1 is entry, Level 2 is proficiency, a 10-year veteran, the limit of a person without talent. Level 3 is professional level, requires effort and talent, and finally is proficiency, requires strong talent and effort. There are only 4 levels. Ordinary life skills are not shown here. In addition, explain the peak average. This refers to the upper limit of a person's physical fitness after he develops to a certain age. Generally, it is 28-32 for men, and 2 or 3 years earlier for women. The average value is taken from this range. As for your actual subhealth due to work and rest, the panel does not refer to it. It refers to the upper limit of the body's development to the peak, not the actual value in reality. The current value of the protagonist is very good among his peers, but it is still not as good as those who are gifted, have developed their physical fitness to the peak, and have been training hard. Chapter 13, The Strong Family. Detective Panel, Character, Dean Level 3, 0/400, Spirit. 11 Strength. 13 Speed. 10 Endurance. 8 Skills, Pistol Mastery, Torture, L2, Blow Needle, L2. Attribute points. 0 skill points. 0 completed cases, omitted. So far, the points have been added. Strength makes people confident. After Dean came back from Las Vegas, his nerves, which had been tense, finally relaxed. He was afraid of the unknown organization behind Santoni before because he was in the dark in his previous life and knew the horror of these organizations. It was the same. He knew how powerful he was now. Strong strength means a stable gun. Fast speed means a fast gun. With a gun in hand. Dean was confident that as long as he was not surrounded and killed by a regular team, 7 or 8 ordinary gunmen would be a piece of cake in front of him. Of course. It is easy to dodge an open gun, but it is difficult to defend against an arrow from the dark. Dean was a little inflated for a while, and then he adjusted his mentality again. The attribute of speed is mainly reflected in the flexibility of hands and feet and the speed of human reaction. It is a perfect match with firearms. I need to speed up as much as possible in the future. In addition, the detective panel requires solving cases to gain experience points. Dean sighed melancholy. It seems that his plan to be a parasite is not feasible. Before obtaining the detective panel, even if Dean knew that the organization behind Santoni might pose a threat to him, he never thought about solving the other party, but thought about escaping. Because he knew that no matter how powerful a person is, he can't defeat the bullets flying in the dark. If he jumped out, he would only get into trouble and even affect his family. Now, it may not be the case. The detective panel gave Dean the confidence. It just so happens that Eve promised to help me transfer to the robbery and murder division, which is the major crimes unit. By then, even if I am just a slacker, I can continue to get stronger. I can also learn some crime-solving skills to form a positive cycle. The stronger I am, the easier it is to solve cases, and then the stronger I will be. By then, my status will be improved, and maybe I can even form a team of my own. Each level has its own rules. The higher the status and the stronger the power, the safer you are. The more Dean thought about it, the brighter his eyes became. He didn't have this idea before, but he knew that it would be difficult for him to get ahead with his level. Now, he has it. Thinking of this, Dean took out his mobile phone and called Eve. "Dean, what's the matter? Can't you talk about it tomorrow?" Eve's weak voice came from the other end of the phone. Dean realized that he went to bed early yesterday, And it was only a little after 3 in the morning. Well, I just saw the message you sent, and I'm a little excited. Eve, you should be promoted soon, right? Mentioning promotion. Eve was in high spirits, almost. By the way, Dean, I want you to stay. When the time comes, I will help you become the deputy captain. She was parachuted into the anti-crime and anti-drug division as a deputy captain. The people under her were all the old captain's men, and they usually didn't pay much attention to her. Otherwise, Eve wouldn't have fooled Dean, a rookie, to go undercover. It would be great if Dean could come to help her. Eve went to the forest cabin to see it in person. All 7 people were shot on vital parts, which showed that Dean's shooting skills were fierce and decisive. She even suspected that if she hadn't intervened, Dean would simply be robbing the thieves. Hearing Eve's words, Dean fell into deep thought. It didn't seem impossible. He had Eve's handle. If he stayed in the anti-crime and anti-drug division, he would not only have a lot of freedom to act, but also a smoother promotion. However, the key is the case. He must solve the case to gain experience, and a homicide case will undoubtedly give him more experience. A simple promotion is meaningless to him. The anti-crime and anti-drug division is too soft. Thinking of this, Dean shook his head and said, "Sorry, I would rather join the robbery and murder division, but Eve, maybe in the future, we can form an alliance." Okay. Eve was a little disappointed. "I will go to work tomorrow and ask a friend to help you transfer the file. As long as the captain of the robbery and murder division does not object, you should have no problem joining." "Yes." Hang up the phone. Dean touched his stomach. He was a little hungry. His physique became stronger. His consumption also increased. "Fortunately, I strengthened my body before and didn't consume much of my own energy, otherwise I would be sucked dry." Dean was a little relieved. The family was sleeping soundly. No mistake, 1 song, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 look. Dean quietly went downstairs to find food, but bang dong, the sudden increase in strength and the improvement in speed reaction were not obvious when he was moving in a small range in the room. Once he went out, Dean either walked too fast or used too much force, making constant collision sounds, and almost rolled down the stairs. "I hope I didn't wake up Mom and the others." Dean opened the refrigerator door more carefully, picked up a piece of bread and started to eat it. Suddenly, the lights in the living room came on. Who? The door near the stairs on the 2nd floor was pushed open. Mom Sheila, holding a shotgun, looked fiercely at the kitchen and pulled the bolt. Woo-woo. Hearing the sound of the bolt, Dean, with his mouth full of bread, quickly raised his hands and turned around, fearing that he, who had just received the panel, would be shot by his mother for stealing bread. "Huh? Dean." Sheila saw Dean's face clearly, and was stunned at first, then burst into laughter. "Haha, baby, I thought a homeless person sneaked in. Why didn't you turn on the light?" Dean swallowed the bread and rolled his eyes. "I was afraid of waking you up. But we are already awake." "Wow, Dean, you have a great figure. Can I touch it?" Sinclair's little head stretched out from the stairs, looking at Dean, who is only wearing shorts, with some envy. "Dean, you are only 11 years old." Sheila on the side whistled and praised Sinclair. "Baby, you have a good eye. Dean's figure is really good, very safe." Dean. As expected of the daughter of a farm cowboy, she is really fierce. However, in America, parents usually get along with their children more like friends, so they often talk more casually and are not particularly restrained. He had to divert attention and said, "Keep your voices down, Thompson is still sleeping." "I'm awake too." Thompson's voice came from the 3rd floor. He held a bow and crossbow in his hand, and his little head was exposed, aiming at the lobby on the 1st floor. If Thompson hadn't spoken, Dean wouldn't have noticed him. This is the 6th child. What kind of family did the predecessor come from? Why didn't he notice it before? Dean was speechless and quickly walked aside with the bread. "Thompson, move the crossbow in your hand away, don't point it at me. It's just a toy, a small caliber crossbow with an effective range of 50 meters. It's very effective in shooting rabbits, but it's difficult to kill people." Thompson put away the crossbow and looked at Dean with some envy. "Dean, can you teach me fitness? If I have this figure, Susan will definitely agree to be my girlfriend. Then you should learn to eat more meat instead of vegetables every day." Dean rolled his eyes. The predecessor thought that his younger brother was introverted. This is clearly a stuffy one. "Okay, go to bed early." Dean couldn't stand the stares of the three people, so he had to take a bunch of food and drinks and fled back to his room in embarrassment under the watch of his family. He decided to move out early. Oh my god, I just found out this morning that I updated the wrong chapter yesterday. Chapter 14 Happy Day. Dean, are you juggling? Your fingers are so flexible. Dean, do you have a girlfriend now? If not, I can introduce my teacher to you. She will definitely like your hands. I swear. What should I do if I have a clingy and dirty sister? Dean put away the coin that was tumbling flexibly on his fingertips and looked helplessly at his sister who was clinging to him. Sinclair, maybe you can review your homework. Mom told me that your recent grades are not very good. Sinclair rolled his eyes. Oh, don't be like this, Dean. I'm just an 11-year-old child. My happy childhood should not be occupied by those boring and hypnotic things. No, compared to you, Thompson is more like a simple child. Don't involve me, I just rarely watch those adult talk shows. Thompson, who was assembling a large Rubik's Cube on the side, retorted without raising his head. Okay. Dean nodded in agreement. There are many bloody adult programs in the United States, and his mother Sheila and sister Sinclair are loyal viewers of these programs. However, as soon as Thompson opened his mouth, Sinclair immediately retorted, Thompson, as your sister, I think you need to watch more talk shows. Those shows can at least make you, who is boring, more interesting. I am really worried that you will not be able to find a dance partner when you graduate from high school, and in the end you can only let me be your dance partner. I will not lack a dance partner. You said the same thing before the junior high school graduation dance. That was before. Oh. Thompson's defense was broken. He silently hugged his Rubik's Cube and shrank to the other corner of the sofa. After bullying Thompson, Sinclair smacked his lips with some unsatisfied feeling, and looked to the side again, wanting to continue to harass his second brother, but found that Dean had slipped away without knowing when. Dean was relieved to leave the house. Sinclair may not have seen him for a long time, and he is very interested in him and very clingy. Dean is a little uncomfortable with this. This will take some time. Touching his stomach, Dean walked towards the convenience store across the street. He had been getting used to his current physical strength all morning, and after all the hard work, he was a little hungry. In fact, he wanted to have a barbecue with rich gravy. But the community where his mother Sheila lived was a middle-class community, and there was only one fast food restaurant around, which was a few streets away. Dean was too lazy to leave. There were not many customers in the convenience store. Dean pushed the door open and walked in. The boss didn't even raise his head when he heard the noise, and was concentrating on reading the newspaper. Dean didn't care. Don't expect to have a good attitude in this kind of private convenience store, and there are fewer varieties of things, and the prices are much more expensive than those in supermarkets outside. Most people go directly to the supermarket to buy supplies for a week or even half a month, and only go to the convenience store to buy in case of emergency. Dean shuttled through the shelves and suddenly found a bottle of something very familiar in the corner. I didn't expect that this small convenience store actually has Chinese Lao Mazi hot sauce. What a nostalgic taste. In his previous life, he was adopted from an orphanage by the organization when he was very young, and wandered around various countries to perform missions. He was a rootless person. The only thing I want after I grow up is these foods of the same origin. I didn't expect that this world also has them. It's a pity that I have confirmed that this world is not my previous life, but a parallel world. Otherwise, maybe I would have a chance to destroy the organization in my previous life and let them pay back what they owe me. Dean held the chili sauce, his mind flying. Suddenly, a woman's terrified cry came from the door. Shut up. Stinky bitch, shut up and lie down. Hey, calm down, this is money, don't shoot. Dean took out a fruit knife from the shelf next to him, hid behind the shelf, and looked at the door of the convenience store. I saw a thin black man with a hood on his head, holding a black pistol and pointing it at the convenience store owner. The convenience store owner was very calm. While he was comforting the other party, he quickly threw a pile of small bills from the cash register to the table. Under the counter, there was also a fat female customer, who was covering her mouth, sticking up her butt, shivering and shrinking, fearing that she would be shot. Oh, this is a robbery. Dean tore open the packaging of the fruit knife in his hand and hid it in his palm, without any idea of coming out. Of course, if the robber comes over, he doesn't mind sending him to listen to God's teachings and earn some experience points by the way. except for the unlucky female customer. After hearing the noise, the other customers of the convenience store had already skillfully crouched under the shelves, holding their heads with their hands, not listening or watching. It's just a robbery, a daily life. There's no need to make a fuss. The whole robbery process ended very quickly. In less than a minute, the armed robber took the stolen banknotes, pushed the door out, rushed into a car parked on the roadside, and drove away. Oh, the convenience store owner was relieved. Customers, the unpleasant things are over. I'm sorry for this, but please don't leave yet. Wait for the police to come and register. As he said, he called the police and the insurance company. Oh, God, I'm so scared. I didn't expect these black people to appear in the Arthur community. The fat woman who was lying on the ground before sat on the ground in shock, her whole body still trembling. But she obviously didn't notice that there were 2 black people among the customers of the convenience store. What did you say, bitch? Keep your mouth shut. Am I wrong? Where there are black people, there's evil. It's you who made this place a mess. The fat woman was obviously a racist. Seeing that the 2 people didn't have guns in their hands, and the police were coming soon, she became bolder and vented the previous shock on these 2 customers who were also black. FKUA can hit the fat woman's mouth, in exchange for the other party's miserable wail. Dean leaned on the shelf, eating bread while watching the farce in front of him with interest. As an immigrant country, the United States has a lot of bad things, and there are many weird things. It's just a small scene in front of him. This convenience store is located in a mid-range community. There are patrolmen patrolling outside 24 hours a day, obeying the dispatch of the command center. Everyone waited for less than 5 minutes before sirens sounded outside. Dean also witnessed the way the patrol officers here handled cases. They turned on the law enforcement device, briefly asked the convenience store owner a few questions, then asked about the situation of Dean and other customers, and drove away. As for the fight between the fat woman and the 2 black customers, the fat woman did not report the case immediately. It was none of their business. The 2 black customers gave the fat woman a middle finger and followed her away. The poor fat woman, looking at the police car leaving, covered her mouth with blood and unable to speak, and couldn't help but burst into tears. What an interesting day. Dean paid the bill and called Eve. In this strange country, there will probably be a lot of cases. Dean is looking forward to his career in the police force. In the next chapter, he will enter the serious crime team and start the case. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, Reporting to the Detective Bureau. That night, Dean finally received Eve's call. He could report to the Robbery and Murder Division tomorrow. Neil also called to report that she was safe and that no strange people appeared around her. She also confirmed with him the time to attend Mass' funeral. This made Dean feel even better. He had followed the news in Las Vegas. The news about the heavy artillery found in Santoni's garage had been suppressed in less than a day, but the online media was still hot on this regard. The forces behind Santoni were probably in a state of panic at the moment and did not notice the traces left by Mass in this matter. This meant that he did not have to worry about this matter for the time being. However, when the other party recovered, they might notice this and finally find out the relationship between Dean and Mass and the identity of Dean's father. At that time, what was waiting for Dean might be a storm. He had to become stronger as soon as possible. The next morning, Dean got up early, took the relevant documents, bought a lot of breakfast, and drove to the detective station. The Anti-Crime and Narcotics Division is right next to the Robbery and Murder Division. Both belong to the Detective Bureau. The predecessor, who was a punk, got a certificate and was fooled by Eve to be an undercover agent. So Dean does not need to go to the Anti-Crime and Narcotics Division to go through other procedures, and can report directly to the Robbery and Murder Division. Here we have to talk about the organizational structure of the Los Angeles Police Department. The Los Angeles Police Department has 21 districts under its jurisdiction, and these districts are divided into 4 command areas according to the region, called precincts: Canyon Precinct, Central Precinct, West Precinct, South Precinct. In addition, there are 2 additional precincts, the Detective Bureau and the Special Operations Bureau. There are also some differences in the positions of these 2 precincts and the rest of the precincts. For example, Ordinary police officers in other precincts generally start as patrol officers during the internship period, with a rank of police officer, while in the detective bureau where Dean is, although the rank is still police officer during the internship period, the position is detective, which is higher than patrol officers. Therefore, generally only excellent senior police officers can be admitted to the detective bureau. Dean's grades in the police academy were average. He was able to enter the anti-crime and drug enforcement division mainly because his father had a good background and had a bonus. Otherwise, he could only be assigned to other branches and become a patrolman patrolling the road. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Dean came to the detective bureau. This is a huge building complex, somewhat like a community, covering a large area, with a dedicated parking lot and dining and fitness venues. Dean drove in smoothly with a detective's certificate of the Anti-Crime and Drug Enforcement Division. The Robbery and Murder Division in Los Angeles has jurisdiction over murder and robbery cases in the entire Los Angeles, covering a population of tens of millions. Naturally, it is impossible to have a single department, but it is divided into 4 squadrons. Not counting the logistics staff, there are about 50 or 60 people in total. Dean is going to the 4th squadron, a squadron that has just been established for less than half a year. In fact, only this squadron is short of people, and Dean has performed well in the bank armored car robbery case. Eve has put a lot of effort in it, so the other party is willing to accept him. According to the guard's prompts, Dean came to the office of the 4th squadron with a bunch of breakfast and drinks. He thought there was no one there, but he didn't expect that as soon as he entered, there was a black guy wearing headphones and dancing as if no one was around. He looked very happy. The other party also saw Dean. He glanced at the breakfast in Dean's hand, took off the headphones, and joked, "Hey man, can takeout be delivered directly to the office area now? Actually, this is not takeout. Hello, my name is Dean. I come to report to the 4th Squadron of the Robbery and Murder Division today. I know you." The black guy's eyes widened and he looked Dean up and down. "The captain said that a ruthless person will join us today. Could it be you?" Very tall and handsome. But he couldn't see what was ruthless about Dean. Dean put the breakfast on the table at the entrance and shrugged. "If I'm the only one reporting in today, then it should be me. By the way, do you want something to eat?" "Of course." The black guy picked up a sandwich and a cup of coffee without hesitation. "My name is Harry, men. Thank you for your breakfast. It warms my stomach like a stove in winter. The early bird catches the worm, Harry. This is your reward for coming early." Dean smiled. Usually, people here don't get to work until 9 o'clock, but it's only 8 o'clock now. Harry smiled proudly. "Men, diligence is my character, you will know it later." While talking, the door of the office was pushed open again, and a white man with a face full of fat, strong limbs and a circle of beard walked in. "Wow, look who this is. Harry. I didn't expect you to come so early." The white man shook the fat on his cheeks exaggeratedly, as if he saw an incredible scene. "Lawrence, I've always been very hard-working." Harry was slapped in the face as soon as he boasted. He quickly pointed to Dean and changed the subject. "This is Dean, a new colleague. He bought us breakfast. He should be a good guy to get along with." The white strong man had noticed Dean a long time ago, and smiled and stretched out his thick palm. "Dean, hello, I'm Lawrence, welcome to you." "Hello." No mistake, 1 sentence, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 look. Dean stretched out his palm. The next moment, a brute force came from Lawrence's palm. This is also an unserious guy. Dean will not be soft-hearted. The muscles on his arm tightened and the power surged out. The smile on Lawrence's face froze instantly. Harry obviously knew Lawrence's character. Seeing that the two of them had not let go of their hands, he patted Dean's shoulder and said with a smirk, "Welcome to the 4th Squadron, rookie." After that, he winked at Lawrence, signaling him to let go and not play too much. Lawrence's mouth twitched, and he endured the severe pain in his hand and said, "Harry, Dean is more enthusiastic than you think, you should feel it." Harry then noticed that something was wrong with Lawrence, and shrank back. "Dean, you are actually stronger than Lawrence? He used to be a professional wrestler." Dean let go of Lawrence's palm and patted Harry's shoulder hard. "Welcome to the 4th Squadron, old bird." Harry grinned and rubbed his shoulders constantly, obviously feeling Dean's enthusiasm. Haha, seeing Harry grinning, Lawrence laughed. "Man, I like you. Here, modesty will only be looked down upon." Dean's reaction not only did not disgust the two, but made them initially accept Dean. This man is at least not a soft egg. Others have not arrived yet. Harry and Lawrence took Dean to familiarize himself with the office. The office is divided into 6 areas: office area, lounge, water room, conference room, archive room, and captain's office. Personnel. The 4th Squadron currently has 1 captain, 1 deputy captain, 4 detectives, 2 logistics personnel, and Dean, a total of 9 people. The real place is big, but the people are few. Harry, like Lawrence, is a detective who is promoted from a patrolman, but Lawrence has been a police officer for more than 10 years and has a higher rank than the two. The atmosphere here seems a bit lazy. It was not until after 8:50 that the rest of the people clocked in one after another. Dean felt vaguely that something was wrong. This place is a little different from what he imagined. Crying. Why hasn't the contract text message come yet? Does anyone read this book? Chapter 16, Joining the Company, a salty atmosphere. When someone comes into the office, Lawrence and Harry will introduce Dean. These people are experts at scouting. At 9 o'clock, Dean has already met everyone in the 4th Squadron, except for the captain who has not yet appeared. Maybe it's because he brought breakfast. Everyone has a good first impression of Dean, regardless of whether he eats or not. At least this newcomer has shown his attitude of wanting to integrate here, and the follow-up will depend on his ability. At 9:20, everyone is slacking off at their workstations. Dean is a new employee, and the captain needs to arrange an interview for him, go through the process, and then follow the logistics to get the detective's license, gun, etc. But the captain hasn't come to work yet. Dean, who had nothing to do, sat down next to Harry. "Harry, don't we need to have a meeting?" Harry skillfully opened the computer game and said without turning his head, "Dude, the meeting is just a formality. You have to get used to it. In addition, we usually only have meetings when the case is not solved, but we haven't received any cases for half a month. Have they all been solved?" "All failed." Harry sighed and threw a file bag into Dean's hand. "I came in 3 months earlier than you and experienced 3 cases. A wife-killing case. When we went there, we happened to help the murderer who committed suicide to collect a body. A headless male corpse case in a hotel. The body was sealed with special means and hidden under the mattress. Because of the long time, we didn't even figure out the identity of the male corpse, let alone solve the case. Another time was a home invasion rape and murder case. We investigated the entire scene and didn't find any useful traces. We investigated the relationships around the deceased and didn't find anyone who had time to commit the crime. In my experience, this case is likely to be thrown into the archives and collect dust. Is it so difficult to solve the case?" Dean was a little surprised. "It depends on luck." Harry handed Dean a cigarette. "If there are clues to follow, the probability of solving the case is okay, but many are crimes of passion between strangers. It's okay if there are surveillance cameras, but without surveillance cameras and witnesses, it's difficult for us to find the murderer from the vast crowd. Even if we find him, there is a high probability that there will be no evidence to convict him in the end. Yes, in fact, many homicide cases will become unsolved cases, waiting for the day when a fool is caught and confesses what he has done." Lawrence also came over from the side and took a cigarette. "This doesn't sound good," Dean muttered. "He came to solve cases and become stronger, not to fish. Although fishing is also comfortable. But if he stays in the 4th Squadron of the Robbery and Homicide Division, it's like this every day. He might as well be a patrolman. At least patrolmen have to deal with a lot of troubles every day, and they can gain some experience. No matter how small the mosquito leg is, it's still meat, better than nothing." Lawrence blew a smoke ring with a comfortable expression. "Dean, you seem to want to solve the case." Hearing this, Harry was dissatisfied first. "Hey, Lawrence, who doesn't want to solve cases and get promoted and get a raise? Only old men like you like to lie around and do nothing every day. But I'm worried that if this continues, our 4th Squadron will be fired. Their salaries are paid by the Los Angeles city government. If they don't do anything, it's not impossible to be fired. Being a detective is just a job. Why worry about these things? If it's a job, you may be fired." Lawrence was not worried at all. "That's right." Harry shrugged. "When the time comes, I can just drive a truck. The salary is much higher than now." Dean. He didn't want to talk anymore. Just took a deep puff of cigarette. Not good. The 3 of them huddled in a corner for the whole morning, puffing smoke and doing nothing. At noon, Deputy Captain Hunter, on behalf of the 4th Squadron of the Robbery and Murder Division, invited Dean to the restaurant for a meal, which was considered a formal welcome for his arrival. This is a 53-year-old black old man, who speaks slowly and calmly, giving people a sense of calmness. "Thanks for the treat, Deputy Captain." Dean turned his sadness into appetite and ate 3 steaks in one go. He was very satisfied now. "It seems that you have adapted to the rhythm here. Not bad. You are living the life of a 50-year-old in your 20s. You have avoided 30 years of detours," Dean said meaningfully. Ha ha ha. Old Hunter understood what Dean meant and laughed. He has been a police officer for more than 30 years and is an old hand. His ability may not be strong, but he is good at judging people. Old Hunter can feel that there is a momentum in Dean's heart. The 4th Squadron needs such a young man. No mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 9, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 look. He stood up and comforted Dean. "The 4th Squadron has just been established for half a year. Many suitable cases cannot reach us at all. We need to wait for an opportunity. Do you understand?" "Okay." Dean nodded. He was ready to take a look. If it continues to be like this here, let Eve transfer him back. In the afternoon, Old Hunter assigned Dean a desk, just behind Harry, and asked Daisy, the logistics person, to take him to apply for a detective's license, and to receive a police pistol and a heavy bulletproof vest. If necessary, Dean can also buy a gun for reimbursement, or receive a submachine gun such as a tactical shotgun, M4, MP5, etc. as firepower support. Since the incident in which dozens of police officers were beaten by several robbers with heavy weapons, the entire police force's authority to use guns has been much more relaxed. Dean threw the bulletproof vest under the desk and played with a pistol he received. He received an M1911, .45 caliber, using 11.43mm bullets. The effective range is not far, but the performance is stable and the power is strong, which suits Dean's taste. Harry turned his head. "Man, I thought you would get a revolver, like this." He took out his revolver from his waist. "Just like a cowboy, it's cool to think about pulling out a gun and shooting in an instant." "Maybe, but there are too few bullets for revolvers." As he spoke, Dean shook his hand lightly, and the pistol in his hand fell like falling dust, one by one, and the parts slowly fell on the table, as if they had existed independently from the beginning. "Wow, cool." Harry was stunned by this scene. Dean smiled, said nothing, and lowered his head to carefully maintain the gun. In addition to the pistol, he also received a shoulder strap holster, gun oil, cloth, 4 basic magazines, and a uniform, but there was no suitable size, so Dean could only wait for notification. However, as a detective, except for some important occasions, they don't need to wear uniforms at ordinary times, and can wear clothes at will, which is equivalent to plain clothes. Harry was very envious of Dean's ability to dismantle guns. "Dean, my dear buddy, I think we can go to the shooting range after work. Our detective department has a cooperative shooting range. The price is cheap and we can have fun." Hearing this, Dean's heart moved. That's possible. After he mastered the pistol, he had not tried the power. Dean agreed. Just when everyone thought that they would get off work happily today, the captain of the 4th Squadron finally came to the office at the right time. He also brought an unfortunate news. Overtime. Brothers, Gaozai will update twice a week next time. If possible, please help Gaozai recommend this book to your friends. The child wants to sign a contract. Chapter 17 Serial Home Invasion, Rape and Murder Case. Los Angeles is a metropolis with a permanent population of 3 to 4 million. With a floating population, there are nearly 10 million people coming and going. However, not counting the civilian staff, there are only a few thousand police officers. Frequent overtime is the norm in the police station. But in SYNOPSIS 4th Squadron, this is not common. "I have a bad feeling." Lawrence sighed, put down his coffee cup, stood up and walked towards the conference room. "I feel something good is going to happen." Harry and Dean followed him into the conference room. Dean followed Harry and sat at the end of the conference table, looking at the captain of the 4th Squadron. The captain of the 4th Squadron is called Mon, who is 38 years old this year. He is an old white man wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses and has an elegant temperament. He looks more like a scholar than a detective. According to the information revealed by Lawrence and Harry, Mon is lazy and kind. He likes fishing and hunting, but he is not active in fighting for cases. The current atmosphere of eating and waiting to die in the 4th Squadron has a lot to do with him. Munn stood in front of the conference table, looking around at the people below. After a brief pause at Dean's face, he pulled a whiteboard next to him and wrote a few words: serial home invasion rape and murder case. Guys, unfortunately, the home invasion rape and murder case half a month ago is not the end, but just the beginning. Munn waved to Daisy. Daisy passed a stack of documents in her hand to everyone. Dean opened it and found that the content on it was exactly the case that Harry showed him before. On a rainy night, a woman living alone was sneaked into, drugged, raped and killed, and the victim was left with traces of abuse. Deputy Captain Hunter, please tell us about the new victim. Old Hunter nodded and said in a deep voice, the new victim is called Irene. She lives alone in the Yellen community. She was found dead at home by her best friend yesterday afternoon. According to the on-site investigation and the autopsy, Irene was hit on the head 3 times, and then forced to drink sleeping pills. After the victim was unconscious, she was raped and tortured for more than 6 hours. The body of the deceased was covered with bruises from being beaten. There were material residues in the lower body of the deceased, but they were not genetic materials. After testing, the residues were plastic. Someone violated the deceased with plastic. There were towel fibers in the mouth of the deceased, indicating that the murderer had stuffed the woman's mouth with a towel to prevent her from making a sound, and finally strangled the woman to death. This was a brutal home invasion rape and murder case. No wonder I didn't see the deputy captain and the captain yesterday. I thought they went fishing secretly, but I didn't expect that they went to investigate the case secretly. Harry whispered beside Dean. Hearing this, Dean's eyes flashed with realization. At noon, Old Hunter said that the 4th Squadron was just short of an opportunity. He originally thought that this was just an excuse from Old Hunter, but now it seems that the other party is using this case as an opportunity for the 4th Squadron to prove itself. After Old Hunter finished his case statement and let everyone digest it, he continued to add, compared to the burglary and murder case half a month ago, this case first knocked the victim unconscious, then committed the crime, and finally killed the victim. It is very likely that the same murderer, but compared to the last time, the murderer is bolder and the means are more cruel. Captain Menyan took over the topic. Everyone, like the last case, the murderer cleaned the house very carefully at the end, and there are not many clues left at the scene. If you have any ideas or thoughts, you can put them forward. Everyone fell into deep thought. Dean carefully flipped through the information in his hand. The crime scenes were relatively remote. The time was in the early morning. The female victims all lived alone. There were few clues left at the scene, and there were no signs of breaking into the scene. He had no experience in solving cases, but he had similar criminal experience. In fact, the idea of breaking into a house and raping and murdering a house is the same. Generally speaking, for such cases of breaking into a house that do not leave many traces, you need to scout the spot in advance, choose the target, and consider the places that need to be vigilant before committing the crime, so as to reduce the exposure of traces. This means that the murderer and the 2 victims have common intersections, and there is a high possibility that they know each other. In the absence of more clues, this may be a breakthrough point. In addition, from the murderer's preference for drugging and then abusing, and even using plastic products to violate the victims, it can be seen that he may have psychological and physical problems, and may have been bullied. But this kind of person is too common in America. This point is difficult to use as a feature to lock the murderer. Dean rubbed his forehead. After all, he is not a real detective, lacking some ideas and key insertion points for solving the case. Are there any intersections between the 2 victims, including their work, life, and acquaintances? Both victims live alone. I feel that they may know the murderer, or even the murderer lives near the 2 victims. A short-haired white man took the initiative to speak. His name is Robert. He is white, 30 years old, and he's a retired soldier. He still has the neatness he developed in the army. Like Dean, he is a newcomer. Robert, you are right. In fact, we have also considered this point. Mengan nodded to Robert with appreciation, and then took a pen to draw on the whiteboard. Both victims live in relatively remote residences. They are not rich, but they have fixed jobs and social circles. The biggest intersection between the 2 is here in Sam's supermarket. Sam's supermarket is the nearest chain supermarket to them, and it is also the first choice for residents around to buy daily necessities. Deputy Captain Hunter and I suspect that the murderer is looking for prey here, chatting up, and finally taking action. But there are so many people in Sam's supermarket every day. How can we lock the murderer? The blonde girl sitting next to Robert expressed her doubts. Her name is Sophie. She is not very old, but she is already an old member of the 4th Squadron. She is also Robert's master and usually takes Robert with her. It's very simple, bait. Old Hunter glanced at Meng En, and seeing that he didn't speak up, as the deputy captain, he had to take the blame. This kind of serial killer often has unique taste preferences. The two victims are both young, beautiful, and single women over 1.75 meters tall. We can choose a bait that suits each other's taste and fish in Sam's supermarket. As soon as this was said, everyone subconsciously turned their eyes to Daisy, who was in charge of logistics. Daisy is a logistics staff member of the 4th Squadron. She is 22 years old this year, with big wavy blonde hair. Her figure is at the peak of her age. She is protruding and curvy, and she is not light in weight. The key is that she is nearly 1.8 meters tall, which completely meets the bait conditions mentioned by Old Hunter. The only problem is that Daisy is just a logistics staff member. She is usually only responsible for organizing everyone's documents, summarizing case files, and collecting some intelligence that needs to be collected. Dean's entry arrangement is that Daisy helps. She has no combat power. Daisy was stared at by everyone, and she twisted her body uncomfortably, causing the two hanging grapefruits to sway. Can I understand your gaze as a compliment to me? Of course. Captain Meng En added fuel to the fire and said, the murderer will never give up committing crimes. We must catch him as soon as possible to save the next innocent victim. Daisy, you are the only woman here who can attract the murderer's heart. I think you can try it. This man is undoubtedly an old scumbag who knows what women like to hear. Moral kidnapping and praise. Daisy, who was a little reluctant at first, smiled and agreed with a smile. Anyway, there's everyone's protection. The murderer did not commit a crime directly, but a latent crime. He was the bait. It shouldn't be dangerous. The meeting ended. Under the leadership of Old Hunter, everyone left one by one, preparing to take turns to go to Sam's supermarket to protect Daisy, the bait, starting today. This is not a 1 or 2 day thing, it may last for a while. Dean wanted to leave with him. But Meng En kept him. Dean, I want to have a good chat with you. Chapter 18 An Unpleasant Conversation. Hello, Dean. Eve praises you very much. Can you talk about the bank armored car robbery? You know, you slapped the faces of 4 squadrons of the robbery and murder division. Moon showed his admiration as soon as he opened his mouth. Dean smiled shyly. It's just luck. I happened to be lurking among those robbers, and then they had an internal conflict, and I took advantage of it. No. Moon stretched out a finger and shook it. I know Eve very well. She is a person who likes to whitewash reports, but the case report she submitted was a bit modest, so I know there's a problem here. He adjusted the gold-rimmed glasses on his face, leaned forward, and his tone brought a strong sense of confidence. Dean, reports are written by people. They can deceive people, but corpses don't lie. I personally went to the forensics department to check the remaining charred corpses, and I also went to see the wooden house where only dust was left. The remaining weapons showed that they had no chance to resist at the time. The person who attacked was very decisive, and every shot was fatal. This is not something that ordinary gang members can do. But I have a doubt. Dean, can you tell me? Dean admitted that Mun brought him pressure now, and laziness might just be his cover-up and disguise. Dean leaned back and hid his face in the shadow cast by the window. Captain Mun, I am honored to answer your questions. You can tell me your doubts. Mun's eyes looked through the lens and locked the muscles on Dean's face. Dean, I am very curious, why did the murderer clean up the scene on purpose, and even destroyed everything that could prove the identity of Nathan and others? Do you think he was just trying to rob the robbers at the beginning? There is a biggest loophole in the report, that is, Dean intercepted the murderer whose identity was unknown, but the murderer cleaned up the traces of the cabin. Dean. His interrogation skills are L2 recognized by the system. This means that Dean is a real expert in interrogation. Mun's statement involves criminal psychology. Through the behavior of criminals, the hidden purpose of criminals can be inferred. Mun's words are also a means of interrogation. In the interrogation of the American police, there is a saying called hypothetical crime. Assuming that you are guilty, you are asked to make a hypothetical confession of crime. This confession can solve the problem of insufficient evidence chain of the police. In return, the police can reach an agreement with you to reduce your criminal charges. This is a psychological game. Confess and be lenient, or resist innocence. You can choose to bet that the police evidence chain is incomplete and you will be found not guilty in the end. Dean is facing this choice now. The bank armored car robbery case has been closed because it involves Senator Snart, who has great influence in Los Angeles. Once the case of this kind of complicated nature is closed, it will be suppressed to death. So even if Dean is now outspoken, assuming that the person who killed Nathan and others is him, the purpose is to rob the thieves, it can't affect him. This is why he chose to cheapen Eve. He understands the American judiciary. Mon also understands this. Therefore, Mon suddenly said this now, not to make Dean plead guilty, but to subdue him. Dean's answer now will represent whether he will sit on the bench in the future or become Mon's confidant. He doesn't like this feeling. This will remind Dean of some unbearable memories in his previous life. Perhaps Mon had just been hiding his strength and biding his time, pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. Now the time has come, and he is ready to show his brilliance. But from now on, Dean hates him. He hates anyone who threatens him. There was a moment of silence. Dean raised his head and a smile appeared on his face. Captain Mon, I am actually very curious about these questions. Tell me, why did the person who killed Nathan escape and then return to the scene to clean up the traces? He threw the question back to Mon. Mon tapped the table, looked at Dean for a moment, and nodded. It seems that this will become an unsolved mystery. Okay, Dean, you go out and work with Lawrence. He will be a good teacher. Thank you, Captain. Dean got up and left. This was an unpleasant conversation. Looking at Dean's back as he left, Mon frowned. Dean was just a small character. Before the bank armored car robbery, Mon had never heard of the other party's name, and he noticed him because of Eve's praise for Dean. Eve really wanted him to accept Dean. Mon didn't know Dean, but he knew Eve very well. This was a woman who would not get up early unless there was something to gain. Every action she took was carried out with a strong purpose. Mon had read Dean's file evaluation in the police academy: well-developed limbs, simple mind, and impulsive personality. Now it seems that it's all bullshit. Mon was very sure that Nathan and his group were shot and killed by Dean. No mistake. The other party was planning to rob the robbers from the beginning, but something went wrong in the middle, so Dean gave up the stolen money in exchange for Eve's operation and transferred him to the robbery and murder division. Mon didn't really care what kind of person Dean was. He just habitually wanted to control everything in his hands. In the past 6 months, Mon has figured out the personalities and abilities of all his subordinates, and has enough confidence to control them. But something went wrong with Dean. So, should we get rid of him, or wait and see? After thinking for a long time, Mon sighed. Let's wait and see. In any case, this is a ruthless man, ruthless, with a clear purpose, and he can resist the temptation of more than $3 million. Judging from the conversation, Dean's psychological quality is not bad, let alone stupid. Meng-En is now in need of capable people. After leaving the captain's office, everyone in the 4th Squadron has already clocked out. Seeing Dean, Harry came over. Men, what did the captain say to you? He said I am a talent, but I just lack a famous teacher, so he asked Lawrence to take me. Dean glanced at Lawrence on the side and pricked up his ears, and said deliberately, "Come, man, can you be sincere?" Harry rolled his eyes. Dean shrugged. Okay, the captain just asked me to follow Lawrence. The term famous teacher is added by myself. He at least looks more reliable than you. The corners of Lawrence's mouth rose involuntarily. Dean, you have a good eye, I will take good care of you. He likes the title of famous teacher from Dean's mouth. He, Lawrence, is a famous teacher. Harry was very unhappy with what Dean said, and fanned the flames, saying, Dean, don't blame me for not reminding you. Lawrence is indeed very capable, but he also receives the most complaints. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been a police officer for more than 10 years and still only has the rank of detective. You'd better take care of yourself if you follow him. After saying that, Harry ran out of the door without giving Lawrence a chance to lose his temper. Seeing Harry running away, Lawrence had no choice but to say to Dean, Okay, rookie, let's go. I'm the first group of people to protect Daisy. You need to go to Sam's supermarket with me now. The fishing plan may last for several days, so they plan to take turns to protect Daisy. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Dean followed Lawrence and drove to Sam's supermarket. As for Daisy, she was already wandering around the supermarket fishing. parked the car. Lawrence called Daisy and confirmed her location, then waved to Dean. "Rookie, today I'm going to teach you the first lesson, which is called criminal thinking reasoning. I'm looking forward to it." Dean smiled and followed Lawrence, being an apprentice. Then, before leaving the parking lot, Dean understood what Harry meant. Lawrence was the same age as Captain Mon, but he became an inconspicuous veteran of the 4th Squadron. There was a reason. Chapter 19, a police detective, was disarmed by the supermarket security guard. Being a policeman in America is not easy. Because it is a high-risk job, it is very likely that you are just doing routine inquiries on the side of the road, and you will be greeted by a hail of bullets. Therefore, many policemen will have greater mental stress, which is reflected in their behavior, that is, irritability. Lawrence is particularly irritable. The parking lot of the Sam's supermarket where they are located is located underground, and there is an elevator that goes directly to the supermarket above. When the two just arrived at the elevator door was slowly closing. "Wait?" Lawrence hurriedly ran to the elevator and asked the people inside to wait for them. He didn't want to wait for the next elevator. When the people inside heard Lawrence's shouting, not only did they not help press the door opening button, but they whistled at Lawrence, who was running over, and mocked, "Dude, you are as slow as an old man." But he obviously underestimated Lawrence's speed. FK. The flesh on Lawrence's face twitched, and his speed suddenly increased. Just when the elevator door was about to close, he stretched out his hand to block it. The elevator door sensed an obstruction and opened automatically. When Dean walked in, Lawrence had already cornered the guy in the elevator, squeezing him like an ostrich. "Wow, man, you are now trembling with fear because of a little old man." The young man looked at Lawrence, who was strong and full of flesh, and hugged his slender arms to his chest, his voice trembling a little. "I was just joking, I didn't mean any harm, and there are surveillance cameras in the elevator. Calm down." "Surveillance?" Lawrence grinned, his flesh squeezed together, like a butcher who is about to cut. "I don't know which law in Los Angeles determines that squeezing people is illegal." Dean didn't realize the seriousness of the problem at this time. He leaned on the elevator, smiling and watching the old hooligan who knew the law and bullied people in front of him. In essence, he was a bad-tempered guy like Lawrence. "I was wrong, man, I'm sorry, I didn't do something right just now, please forgive me." The young man apologized in a trembling voice, his eyes staring at the movement of the elevator, only to feel that the elevator was particularly slow today. Dean glanced at the elevator and saw that it was about to reach the supermarket level. He quickly pushed Lawrence. "Okay, I think this kid has learned how to respect others. Large supermarkets here usually have security patrols. It would be bad if they were seen. It is not convenient for them to reveal their identities now." "Well, you are lucky today." Lawrence turned around with some regrets. The elevator door opened. The young man rushed out of the elevator impatiently, as if there was a man-eating beast behind him. Dean and Lawrence looked at each other and laughed. As a result, before the two of them laughed twice, they saw the young man just now running to the security guard at the door of the supermarket, pointing at the two of them, and saying something excitedly. The next moment, Dean saw the two security guards guarding the door, pulling out guns from their waists with a solemn expression, and rushed towards them. "Put your hands up. Lie on the wall, keep your hands away from your waist." The security guards of some large supermarkets in the United States are equipped with guns. But Dean never thought that on his first day as an agent, after he had the legal power to enforce the law, he would be disarmed by the security guards. Lawrence taught him a lesson. Police station. Dean and Lawrence, under the mocking gazes of their police colleagues, awkwardly took back their certificates and guns and walked out the door. As soon as they walked out the door, they heard the laughter inside that could no longer be suppressed. It was hard for them to hold it in for so long. Fuck. Dean believed it. It won't be long before he and Lawrence will become the protagonists of jokes among many colleagues. Outside the door, old Hunter was leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette with a melancholy look on his face. Hearing the noise, he turned his head and saw Lawrence's very aggrieved face. Old Hunter's face became even more melancholy. Lawrence didn't expect that old Hunter would be waiting for them here. He stepped forward awkwardly. "Deputy Captain, I didn't expect that guy to see the gun on my waist. We can't reveal our identities." "Stop talking." Old Hunter sighed. "Lawrence, Dean, it's not appropriate for you to appear in Sam's supermarket now. I have asked Robert and others to protect Daisy. As for you, if you are fine, Go to sort out the clues of the 2 rape and murder cases, or go to the crime scene to see if there are any omissions. In short, don't cause trouble again. After saying that, Old Hunter walked in front of Dean, patted his shoulder sympathetically, and turned away. Everything is self-evident. Follow Lawrence. No mistake, 1 post, 1 content, 1 book, 1 bar. I'm sorry for you, rookie. Seeing this scene, Lawrence's face turned into liver color. He just said that he would teach Dean what criminal thinking reasoning is, and then he made the other party a joke. Fuck the famous teacher. Lawrence felt that he would not have the confidence to speak in front of Dean in the future. Haha, you look so funny now. Dean laughed loudly. You can't do that, Lawrence. Show your strength, thin-skinned villains, but I will laugh at you. Lawrence heard that Dean didn't mean to blame him, and said embarrassedly, Dean, I'm sorry to make you embarrassed with me. No. Dean waved his hand. Lawrence, you are wrong. We just don't want to alarm the criminals, so we suffered this humiliation, so we are selfless contributors who endure humiliation to solve the case, and those who laugh at us should feel ashamed. Huh? Lawrence was confused by Dean's words. It seems that if it weren't for the fact that he was the first to cause trouble, what Dean said was not wrong. Thinking of this, Lawrence felt much better. You are right, but after all, I messed up the matter, so I decided to buy you a drink. Let's go, I won't be polite. The 2 of them were arm in arm, ready to take a taxi to the bar. As for the car left in the parking lot, they could only pick it up in 2 days. Bar. After a few drinks, Lawrence liked Dean more and more. If it were a development game, it would be the kind of favorability plus one screen filing kind. He has been won over by Dean. In his heart, Lawrence changed the relationship with Dean, whom he had just met, from a colleague to a friend, and a good friend who is very pleasing to the eye. People get drunk even if they don't drink. Lawrence, who had suffered a setback in his career, said to Dean in a drunken state, Actually, I'm very capable. When I was in the 1st Squadron, I solved many cases. If it weren't for that incident, I might have become the deputy captain of the 1st Squadron by now. Dean's face was red with wine, but his eyes were very clear. He didn't expect Lawrence to have a story. However, he didn't have the idea of exploring Lawrence's secrets. Their relationship had not reached that point yet. Dean clinked his glasses with Lawrence and changed the subject. Lawrence, you talked to me about criminal reasoning before. Do you have any ideas about the burglary, rape and murder case? Lawrence drank the wine in the glass in 1 gulp and said confidently, Of course, based on the current clues, I already have a group of suspects. Chapter 20 Criminal Psychology Deduction. The murderer is hiding in Sam's Club. Lawrence said with great confidence. Dean's eyes flashed with thought, and finally hesitantly said, Do you suspect the security guard of Sam's Club? The only common point between the 2 victims is that they are both customers of Sam's Club. The most suitable identity to observe the prey is not the customer who goes to the supermarket, but the security guard who can observe and even contact the customers. This is why Dean and Lawrence did not reveal their identities after being disarmed by the security guards, but were taken away by the police honestly. Those security guards are also suspects. That's why Old Hunter was helpless about the arrest of the 2. Because they may have alerted the enemy. Yes. Lawrence exhaled a large breath of alcohol and confirmed Dean's judgment. However, the reason he gave was completely different from what Dean thought. Although the murderer has only committed 2 crimes, the second one was much more cruel than the first one. This obvious change shows that the murderer is more confident that he will not be caught by the police. Why is the other party so confident? Because the other party is familiar with the police's investigation logic, and may even have some channels to get our investigation progress in this case. There are almost no clues left at the crime scene, which also shows that the other party has a strong entire reconnaissance awareness. He knows clearly that it is difficult for us to find him, and even if we find him, it is difficult to convict him. Lawrence paused and looked at Dean. Dean, what do you think this kind of person is generally like? Either he has committed a crime before and been in jail, so he knows where there are pits, or he has also been a policeman, or has a relative who is a policeman and knows the police's methods of investigating cases. The person who knows you best must be your opponent. The same is true for crime. Lawrence's words inspired Dean. However, he still couldn't figure it out. Lawrence, your analysis is correct, but how does it relate to your conclusion that the murderer is a security guard at Sam's Club? Intuition. Lawrence's eyes were a little sluggish, but his mind was still clear. I just inferred the characteristics of the murderer's criminal identity. As for the conclusion that the other party is a security guard at Sam's Club, it is based on the information analysis currently obtained. Dean, you have to know that many security guards have either served in the military or received training similar to that of a police academy. They are actually professionals, and this is the group that best fits my inference of the murderer's identity. The current information has locked on Sam's Club. Combined with the criminal's psychological reasoning, the murderer's identity is described. The combination of the two has become what Lawrence calls intuition. It sounds nonsense, but Dean knows that it actually makes sense. Lawrence's inference, combined with the current clues, can intersect with each other, and the intersection points are likely to be the characteristics of the suspect. Dean is starting from logic based on the current clues. Lawrence is deducing from criminal psychology. This has opened the door to a new world for Dean in terms of solving the case. Lawrence, if your inference is correct, we only need to secretly collect the information and schedule of those security guards, and it will be easy to find the suspects who have committed the crime at the time. In addition, the supermarket has surveillance. We can find the time when the two victims went to the supermarket last time, check their surveillance, and maybe we can directly find the security guards who contacted them. Dean added, looking up, but found that Lawrence had fallen asleep on the bar without knowing when. Rookie. Dean raised a middle finger and simply called home, saying that after spending the night outside today, he took Lawrence to find a hotel to open a room. Thanks to the open atmosphere here. When Dean checked in, he felt the ambiguous and regretful eyes of the front desk. The beautiful front desk, seeing Dean's handsome face, reminded him quite considerately before he left that there was a loving umbrella at the head of the bed. Dean. What a kind girl. Fuck. The next day, Lawrence's pig-like scream woke up the sleeping Dean. FK, Dean, what did you do to me? Lawrence's face was full of flesh, and he looked incredulous. He stared at Dean with grievance and difficulty in speaking, and covered his butt with a pair of big hairy hands. Do you suspect that I stabbed you? Dean was a little skeptical about life. Even if I were a gay, I wouldn't find you. Can't you look in the mirror? I don't believe it either, but can you explain why my back hurts so much? Lawrence's face was full of regret, and he felt that he believed it wrongly. Dean scratched his head. Lawrence, could it be that you have hemorrhoids? To be honest, if I stabbed you, you should have been in the hospital now. After saying that, Dean was too lazy to deal with the crazy Lawrence, and got up to take a shower. Lawrence wanted to say a few more words, but he accidentally saw the dragon snake under Dean's pajamas moving while he was walking, and he closed his mouth silently. No mistakes in one poem, one post, one content, one book, one bar, 1-6, 1-9, one book, one bar, take a look. Okay. Dean's words made sense. The two of them tidied up a bit, took a taxi to the parking lot of Sam's supermarket, and drove the car back to the detective bureau. As soon as they entered the office, Harry, this kid, ran over excitedly. Oh, guys, I heard about your heroic deeds yesterday. Can I interview you? Damn, it spread so quickly. Lawrence cursed and hid in his workstation. He was a little thin-skinned. Dean was different. As long as you are shameless, you won't feel ashamed. He looked at Harry curiously. You are well informed. Of course, I am Harry, the human TMZ of the Los Angeles Police Department. Harry was proud. TMZ is an American entertainment news website that has revealed many sensational news and is very famous. Are you sure? Dean, you have to know that the girls I know are all over the police stations in Los Angeles. There is no news that Harry can't get. Harry shook his fingers, his expression showing vicissitudes and defeat. Dean looked at Harry with a new look. It is undoubtedly a good thing to have a well-informed colleague. There is something that Harry can help with. Dean pretended to be skeptical. Harry, you are exaggerating. I don't believe it, unless you can get all the security information of the Sam's Club where we fell into trouble. Security information. Harry became interested. Are you looking for revenge on those two people? Before solving the case, the captain and others will not let you do whatever you want. Dean shook his head. How can we be so stingy? The security guards are also suspects. We are just working hard to solve the case. Harry was still skeptical. Okay, I will help, but Lawrence is definitely stingy. You know, he comes to the police station so early every day, actually just for free coffee. Dean glanced at Lawrence's position. This guy was already holding a cup of coffee and drinking it. This made Dean a little suspicious. Lawrence got drunk so easily yesterday, maybe on purpose, because he paid for the wine and the room in the end. Daisy's fishing plan yesterday did not yield any results. Lawrence and Dean were severely criticized by the captain in front of everyone at the morning meeting for their recklessness yesterday. The security information was not yet available. Lawrence simply took Dean to the residence of the two previous victims and started the investigation again, which was also a way to teach Dean. Dean became a doctor after a long illness. He had cleaned up crime scenes in his previous life. He was undoubtedly very talented in this regard. After a survey, he actually found new clues. Chapter 21, Ross Gym. Is there something wrong with this towel? Lawrence looked puzzled, not understanding why Dean was staring at a towel in a daze. Pay attention to the logo on this towel. Dean pointed to the pattern on the corner of the towel. It was a Q version bull similar to the Red Bull logo, and below the bull, there was a line of font, Roth Gym. This is a gym towel. So, Lawrence still didn't understand what Dean meant. Dean had to explain. Linda and Amanda's wardrobes both have tights, but there are too many people who like to work out. I didn't think about it at first, but your criminal thinking reasoning gave me a hint. You say, a person who likes to break into homes, rape and kill, and repeatedly torture victims, would he be very boring, have nowhere to vent his energy, and often go to the gym to kill his energy? Since the murderer and the two victims have intersections, then why must it be a supermarket, not a gym? It's simple. We go to this gym and check the membership records to verify this. Lawrence is a man of action. The two drove together and found Roth Gym. The gym was not small, and the closest distance to the two victims was 7 or 8 kilometers, which made the two suspect that they were overthinking. But since they were here, they walked through the front desk, and found the person in charge of the gym. I am Laura, the person in charge here. 2 agents, how can I help you? Laura was a beautiful brown-haired woman with a curvy figure. She was wearing a yoga suit, and her big eyes kept lingering on Dean's face, obviously very interested in him. Lawrence was a little jealous. He stepped forward, took out 2 pieces of personal information, and said in a serious tone, Ms. Laura, we want to know if these 2 people are members of the gym. Laura took the paper from Lawrence's hand, and after reading the content on it, she subconsciously covered her mouth. I have seen reports about their misfortune. Are they members here? Although the police blocked the news. But looking at Laura's reaction, it can be seen that 2 consecutive home rape and murder cases against single women have still caused waves among the public. Just check it out. Lawrence did not reveal too much information. Okay. Laura took Linda and Amanda's information and took Lawrence to the office. Her computer had the information of all registered members. Dean took the opportunity to stroll around the gym. His appearance was in line with the aesthetics of the people here. From time to time, women who exuded hormones boldly came forward to ask him for contact information. Dean even heard suppressed gasps from some VIP exclusive gyms. This place is quite messy. Ross's gym is really big. It is a 6-story building. It not only has a special equipment area, a changing and bathing area, but also a fighting teaching area and a VIP exclusive classroom. Dean even saw a poster of Jeet Kune Do. If it wasn't the wrong time, he really wanted to go over and consult. After all, his physical body will become stronger and stronger, and it would be a waste if he didn't learn some fighting methods. Wandering around, Dean noticed that almost everyone here had a towel distributed free of charge by the gym. He asked someone. It turned out that this was a benefit of Ross's gym. After members apply for a card, they can get 2 towels for free, and they can take them back for new ones after they are damaged. Nice benefit. Dean whistled. He thought of the towel fibers found in the second home invasion rape and murder case. The murderer was very cautious. He brought the towel used to stuff the victim with him and did not forget to take it away, so the fibers found in the victim's teeth were of no use at all. And towels are daily necessities that can be found everywhere in life, and it is difficult to find useful clues on them. Now it's different. The towels in the gym are distributed in such a large quantity, they should be customized in one place. If it can be determined that the towel fibers in the victim's mouth have the same composition as the towels here, then the case will have a new direction. This may be a breakthrough. Soon, Lawrence came back with a smile. Dean, you guessed right, Linda and Amanda are indeed members here, although I don't understand why they travel so far to work out. You don't think this is just a gym, do you? Dean laughed. Lawrence was confused. Such a big gym, you tell me it's not just for fitness? Laura on the side showed a little embarrassment on her face. This place is not just a simple fitness place, but also a social place, a better social place than a bar. No mistake. People who love fitness are relatively more self-disciplined. Such people are more likely to achieve success, so the proportion of successful people is not low. In addition, the hormones burst after exercise, and the success rate of beauties here to catch rich men is also higher. Therefore, the members of the Ruiz gym have gathered many beautiful women around. This is also one of the selling points here. In fact, many large gyms with a little reputation are like this. After getting the information of the towel manufacturer from Laura, Dean and Lawrence took a new towel and rushed to the identification department. On the way, Lawrence was still asking, Dean, what does it mean that a gym is not just a gym? Dean didn't expect Lawrence to be so simple, so he had to explain it briefly. There is such a thing. Lawrence muttered. It's bad. I forgot to ask how much it costs to apply for an annual card there. At the identification department, the person who received Dean and the others was a white fat man. The fat man's name was Bill. When Dean and Lawrence saw him, Bill was in front of a corpse, chewing a big hamburger full of gravy, with a glass of tomato juice on the side. Bill, I need your help with something. Lawrence was not surprised, and came forward with the towel in a very familiar manner. Please analyze the fiber composition of this towel. Oh, I need to rest now. Bill glanced at the new face of Dean, and then lowered his head again, not giving Lawrence any face. A Big Mac burger meal. Lawrence gritted his teeth and stretched out a finger. The Big Mac burger meal successfully hit Bill's soft spot. He swallowed a burger in his mouth and gave Lawrence a warm hug. Oh, isn't this my good brother Lawrence? How can I help you? After saying that, he also cunningly wiped Lawrence's back with his hand. The towel fiber in the victim's mouth did not remain in the forensic department, but the component analysis was recorded. The identification analysis takes some time. The two had to come back tomorrow to get the results. Out of the identification department, Lawrence looked at Dean from time to time, wanting to say something but stopping himself. Dean felt uneasy when he looked at him, and said helplessly, "What do you want to say? Can we split the bill for the Big Mac?" Fuck. Dean gave Lawrence a middle finger. Harry was right, this guy has a rough and majestic face, but he is really stingy. Back to the detective station. The office was empty, and only Harry was on duty. He told Dean and Lawrence, one good news and one bad news, or rather, both bad news. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 New Victims. Guys, I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Harry came up with a playful smile. Lawrence threw him a cigarette. Bad news? I don't want to be happy first and then upset. That makes sense. Harry nodded. Just an hour ago, the victim of the third home invasion rape case showed up, and the deputy team took other people to investigate the scene. What? Dean and Lawrence were surprised to hear the news. The first home invasion rape and murder case happened more than half a month ago, and the second happened the day before yesterday. Everyone thought that the murderer would do the same as before and give them some buffer time. The current result is obviously beyond their expectations. This is troublesome. Continuous crimes will make everyone around panic, and we will also face great pressure. Lawrence took a deep puff of cigarette, with a worried look on his face. Dean looked at Harry. Harry, tell me the good news. The good news is that I got the information of the supermarket security guards. Harry leaned against the wall, lit a cigarette and took a deep breath. If you suspect that they are the murderers, you are probably worrying too much. I received a message from Phoebe that the time of the third case has been determined to be around 10 o'clock last night. Those security guards lived in the dormitory provided by the security company and had no time to commit the crime. FK, Harry, these are two bad news. Lawrence cursed inwardly and looked at Dean. Let's go. As a qualified detective, you also have to learn how to investigate the crime scene. Dean nodded and followed Lawrence. Harry was not happy. He stopped at the door of the office, with a pitiful expression. Guys, it's too late for you to go there now. Maybe the deputy captain and his men who have already returned with the forensic department. The key is, can you bear to leave me here alone? Get lost, Harry, your expression makes me sick. Lawrence made a vomiting gesture, pushed Harry away, and quickly pulled Dean to run away. Dean. Harry still didn't give up, looking at Dean pitifully. He didn't want to be imprisoned in the office. The only thing that greeted him was Dean's middle finger as he left the detective bureau. Lawrence hung up the phone with Deputy Captain Old Hunter, turned his head and looked at Dean in the co-pilot's seat. The crime scene is in Ian's community, just like before, it's also an old community. Ian's community. Dean lowered his head and pulled out a map of downtown Los Angeles from under him. A moment. His brows furrowed. The 3 crime scenes formed a triangle on the map. There are many cameras in public areas in downtown Los Angeles. Considering the time of departure and concealment, the murderer's residence is most likely within this triangular area. However, this area is not close to the Ross gym, but is within the radiation range of Sam's supermarket. Could it be that the murderer really chose his prey at Sam's supermarket? What did you find? Lawrence controlled the car and flexibly shuttled through the traffic. Dean put away the map. The 3 crime scenes are not far away. I suspect that the murderer lives in the community in this area. Is the range large? Not large. Including the 3 communities where the murder occurred, there are only 5 communities in total. So I think it's very strange. The security here is not good, and many residents will install cameras outside their homes. The murderer chose to attack the surrounding targets, and there is a high possibility of being exposed, which does not conform to the criminal psychology analysis we did for him before. Dean sighed. The more clues he had, the more confused he felt. Solving a case is much more difficult than being a scavenger. Haha, rookie, this is how we solve a case. What we can do is to verify every clue we find, no matter whether it is reliable or not, and finally find a possible breakthrough. Lawrence looks reckless, but he is actually careful. He noticed Dean's mood change and comforted him. Dean nodded and said nothing more. The 2 came to the crime scene. It has been dealt with almost. Old Hunter and others have left, but Phoebe and Robert from another group are still here. In addition, outside the cordon maintained by the patrolman, there are also many reporters and onlookers who are reluctant to leave for a long time. Lawrence took Dean and did not go in directly. Instead, he stood outside the crowd and carefully observed the onlookers. At the same time, he taught Dean, the iconic murderer often returns to the crime scene. Some do so to clean up the evidence. Some do so to observe the detective's investigation and thus speculate on the police's next move. Some are narcissistic and paranoid, trying to get satisfaction and excitement from the panic of the masses and the police's reaction. Some high IQ criminals will even take the initiative to provide help, enjoying the abnormal pleasure while guiding the direction of solving the case. Dean listened carefully. These were all knowledge he had never come into contact with before. However, the faces of these onlookers were either curious or uneasy, and the faces of those reporters were even more excited. Dean could not see anything unusual. He turned his head and looked at Lawrence. Lawrence, how is it? Have you found anything? No, let's go up. No mistake, 1 song, 1 post, 1 content, 1 6, 1 book, 1 bar, 1 look. Lawrence shook his head, took Dean to show his ID to the patrolman on guard, and entered the courtyard. Before entering the house, the 2 put on gloves and foot covers. Inside the house, Phoebe was teaching Robert some investigation techniques. They heard the noise. The 2 stopped. How is it? How many clues did you find this time? Lawrence took Dean and went forward to ask Phoebe about the investigation results. Some new discoveries. Phoebe's face showed anger. This time the murderer is more cruel. The victim's lower body is in tatters, and the murderer even left some unknown red substances in it. This is a provocation. Nothing else. No. Phoebe shook her head. The same means of entering the house, the same criminal habits. The murderer used a vacuum cleaner to clean the room carefully after the crime, and the newly found red substances in the victim's body also need to be tested. Now we can only hope that we will have some gains from fishing tonight. This feeling is really unpleasant. Lawrence's face was shaking. The situation is not good now. Continuous success in committing crimes often makes the murderer swell up, and then become more crazy and perverted. On the other side, Dean saw that the conversation between the 2 was not very nutritious, so he simply followed his previous criminal habits and combined the investigation knowledge he learned in the police academy to investigate the scene. He was just a rookie in investigating the scene. But when it came to cleaning up the traces of the crime, Dean was very experienced. Generally, when a person breaks into a house and kills someone, the traces left behind are mainly in the areas of breaking into the house: fingerprints, hair, shoe prints, and the means of killing. Dean followed this idea and began his first investigation. In order to provide light for this kind of old courtyard, there are usually a lot of window glass left, especially in the living room near the courtyard. The murderer came in through the sliding door of the courtyard. On the lock, he used a tool to cut a circular hole the size of his arm, then reached out to open the lock and follow the trace. Dean went all the way to the bedroom. The bed was already stained with blood, and the mark of the body was located next to the wardrobe. The posture was strange, similar to the upper body lying on the floor, with legs spread apart and resting on the wall, seducing people. Dean glanced at the wardrobe next to him and fell into deep thought. Generally, when being violated, the victim will struggle frantically, forcing the murderer to leave some traces of blood, flesh or hair. The reason why there are few clues in this case is that the murderer always forces the victim to drink drugs before taking action. Therefore, this posture is most likely posed by the murderer. Thinking of this, Dean shouted outside the house, "Phoebe, does the victim this time have similar appearance features to the previous victims?" "Yes, she is very beautiful and has a good figure. By the way, colleagues in the forensic department said that she is over 1.8 meters tall and exercises all year round. If she hadn't been drugged, the murderer might not have succeeded." He got the answer from Phoebe. Dean immediately walked to the bed, closed his eyes, and then imitated the murderer, holding the void with both hands, pulling and dragging hard. He may have found a new clue. Chapter 23. Suspect. "Dean, are you playing psychic magic?" Lawrence came to the door of the bedroom and saw Dean's current appearance and started to tease. "Lawrence, Dean is simulating a crime. Don't tell me that old Hunter and his friends didn't think of this." Lawrence curled his lips. Phoebe rolled her eyes at Lawrence, and then explained to Robert beside her, "Robert, some crime scenes may be outdoors, with a large space, and it is difficult for us to search for clues one by one in detail. So we often use simulated crimes to determine the area where the murderer may be active, reduce the scope of investigation, and even in some special places, we can infer the physical characteristics of the murderer through simulated crimes. In fact, old Hunter and his group had tried it a long time ago. But nothing was found." While talking, Dean suddenly stopped and opened the door of the closet. "Guys, come and see, I have a new discovery." The three of them immediately stopped talking and walked over. The four people gathered in this narrow place, very crowded. Dean pointed to a wooden board on the inside of the closet door. "Look here. Isn't this just an ordinary closet door?" Robert asked in confusion. Lawrence and Phoebe also nodded, not understanding what Dean meant. Dean patted his forehead and pulled the door to a position where the three of them were parallel in vision. Now, the three of them finally discovered something unusual. There was an inconspicuous dent on the inside of the solid wood wardrobe door. Dean explained, "The deceased was very large. To move her down from the bed and put her in a special position, a lot of space was needed. So I guess the murderer opened the cabinet door, otherwise it would be difficult to use force. This dent is probably caused by the collision of the murderer's elbow." Lawrence stepped forward and compared the dent. "If this is a mark left by the murderer's elbow, then wouldn't he be very short?" Dean nodded. "Yes, that's why I suspect it was left by the murderer. After all, the deceased is more than 1.8 meters tall, and it is difficult for her to leave a mark in this position." Phoebe, who was standing aside, pushed Lawrence away and compared the position of the dent with her elbow, and found an unexpected fit. "Oh God, the murderer is less than 1.7 meters tall. To be precise, it's 1.63 meters. Robert, who couldn't get a word in, accurately said Phoebe's height. "Go to hell." Phoebe directly elbowed her apprentice and called old Hunter. "What's wrong, Phoebe?" Old Hunter was very noisy. Phoebe quickly told Dean what she found. 1.63 meters tall? FK, do you remember the little guy who provided us with information? Old Hunter cursed on the other end of the phone. Phoebe opened her mouth wide. The man was just about the same height as her. "Now, you guys, go find him immediately. Hang up the phone." While asking the three to leave, Phoebe explained to Dean and Lawrence, "When Robert and I asked the residents around, a passerby took the initiative to come forward and said that when he returned to his residence at around 11 o'clock last night, he found a dilapidated van parked outside the courtyard. Because the car smelled bad, he was quite impressed. Then you are still staying at the crime scene? Lawrence looked at Phoebe strangely. The 4th Squadron was short of manpower. He and Dean made a mistake and were arranged to review the previous crime scene. Under normal circumstances, Old Hunter would definitely arrange Phoebe and the others to find clues about the van. Phoebe's face showed a little embarrassment, but she did not explain. Robert wanted to say something, but he happened to meet Phoebe's warning eyes, so he had to close his mouth again. Thanks to the case handling procedures, Phoebe and the others recorded the identity information, address and phone number of the little man. The other party was also a resident of this community. Not long after, the 4 of them came to the door of a resident. This was a courtyard similar to the previous victim, located in the south of the community, but the lawn at the door looked a bit messy, as if it had not been tidied for some time. Phoebe, are you sure this is the correct address? Lawrence said. It seems that no one has lived here for some time. Phoebe also noticed this. After she looked at the thick layer of dust on the iron gate, she immediately said to Robert, call the command center to check whether the other party's identity information is true. In addition, Phoebe looked at Dean, go to the property management of the community and check the resident information of this house. Hey, Phoebe, Dean is my man. Lawrence was not happy. No mistakes in one song, one post, one content, one book, one forum, 1619, one book, one forum, one look. Then go with him to find the property management. Phoebe glared. The burly Lawrence, with a face full of flesh, immediately raised his hands in surrender and ran away with Dean. Are you afraid of Phoebe? It was the first time Dean saw Lawrence admit his fear. I have been in the police force for more than 10 years. How could I be afraid of her? Lawrence glanced to the side unnaturally and denied it. Dean grinned, then you just like her. Lawrence was angry and embarrassed. Shut up, rookie, I just respect her. Yes, I just respect my colleagues. How old are you? Do you know what love is? Dean pointed at his face and smiled without saying anything. FK. Lawrence stopped talking. I hate pretty boys. In the evening, everyone in the 4th Squadron returned to the office to report on their work. Captain Meng En was not there. Deputy Captain Hunter sat in the main seat of the conference room. Phoebe, how is the situation? Phoebe stood up and said seriously, the person who provided the clue is called Ackerman, but we have checked and found that it is just a fake identity. The identity information and phone number provided by the other party are all fake. Old Hunter clenched his fist. This is a good thing, which means that the other party is really problematic. You have seen his appearance and do you still have an impression? Finally, there is a breakthrough. Phoebe nodded. Robert has a good memory. He drew the other party's appearance by simulating a portrait artist. After that, she distributed 7 or 8 portraits to everyone. Dean, who was sitting in the corner, picked up the portrait and looked at it. The portrait showed a young man with very weak and handsome features. In addition to the front view, there is also a close-up of the side, which is very realistic. Distribute the portrait to those patrolmen. We must find this person as soon as possible and can't let him continue to commit crimes. Old Hunter's voice was tired. Then do I have to go to Sam's supermarket tonight? Clerk Daisy raised her hand to ask. Go, let Phoebe and Robert protect you. Also, Lawrence and Dean, you two, take the portrait and go to the police station to check if there are any suspected criminals. Harry, go find your friends. I'll ask the captain to approve the informant funds for you. Old Hunter assigned tasks to everyone. Everyone will undoubtedly continue to work overtime today. Looking at the backs of everyone leaving, Old Hunter sighed. The serial home invasion and rape and murder case has attracted the media's crazy attention. If there is no breakthrough in the case, the 4th Squadron will be in real trouble. Chapter 24 I have a friend. After leaving the meeting room, Harry was the first to run away. Guys, I'm going to have fun. See you later. Lawrence's face was full of envy. Harry knew a lot of gang members in Los Angeles. Old Hunter asked him to find an informant for help, which was equivalent to asking him to eat, drink and have fun at public expense. Okay, Dean, we have to go too, otherwise the police station will be off work and we will have to wait until tomorrow. Lawrence retracted his envious eyes and pulled Dean to leave. Dean stopped. Lawrence, I'm going to go to Ross's gym again. Why? Lawrence was puzzled. We have found the suspect. Now we just need to find him and catch him to solve the case. Why are you still wasting time in the gym? I doubt this guy is the murderer. Don't be like that, buddy. You found the clues of the suspect. If you say that, I will suspect that you just want to be lazy. Lawrence looked at Dean suspiciously with his small eyes. Dean took out his phone. I sent the third victim's information to Laura before, and confirmed that the other party is also a member of the Ross gym. Do you suspect that there is information about the suspect in the gym? Lawrence's eyes lit up and automatically blocked Dean's previous sentence. Almost. Seeing that Lawrence couldn't grasp the point, Dean nodded without making any excuses. Okay. Lawrence agreed to split up. You go, but there is another very important point. Please ask me how much the annual fee of the gym is. I plan to go to the gym when I have nothing to do. Dean gave Lawrence a middle finger and turned away. Arrived at the Ross gym. Laura received Dean very warmly and took him to her office. The office was decorated very luxuriously, equipped with various household appliances, and there were compartments inside, with a soft big bed. This place is not like a workplace, but more like a luxurious single room in a hotel. Agent Dean, what would you like to drink? Laura stood in front of the refrigerator, with her back to Dean, bent over, raised an exaggerated arc, turned her head and looked at Dean charmingly. This angle makes people very angry. Dean pressed down his restless pants and took out the suspect's portrait. No, Manager Laura, if it's okay, I want you to help me see if this person is a member of your place. Okay, I still want to have a drink with you. Laura took the portrait reluctantly, and then looked embarrassed. Agent Dean, don't you have any other information? Dean shook his head. Our gym has a lot of traffic. If there is only a sketch, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to help. Laura spread her hands, indicating that she was powerless. It's okay. Dean stood up and took back the portrait. I heard that Bestia restaurant tastes good. I originally wanted to invite Laura to go and see it after I was done with my work, but now it seems that I can't finish my work. He saw what Laura wanted to do. In order to solve the case, Dean was ready to sacrifice himself. Laura snatched the portrait. No, you will have time tonight. After that, she walked out of the office quickly. Dean sat back on the sofa, his mind divergent. He suspected that the short man who provided the clue was not the murderer. The clues found so far are few and fragmentary, and difficult to connect together, but it is precisely because of this that Dean can be sure that the murderer is a person with mature means and cautious thinking. Put yourself in the murderer's mind. This kind of person will never take the risk of showing up in person to mislead the police's investigation direction. This is too stupid. So the short man is probably a means for the murderer to deliberately create and confuse the police. The murderer is no longer satisfied with simple sadism and murder. He wants to tease the police. He wants to make the detective bureau lose face. The police have too few clues. Regardless of whether the clues on the wooden cabinet door are discovered, the detective bureau will be exhausted because of the clues provided by the short man. In case the clues on the wooden cabinet door are discovered, the detective bureau will also be exhausted in tracking down the identity of the short man, and finally find that they are happy for nothing. Give hope, and then cut off hope. The other party treats crime as a game. I hope it's not what I think, otherwise this case will be too difficult. Dean rubbed his forehead and exited the mine substitution. It's really hard to earn some experience points. If he didn't need the strength to protect himself, he really didn't want to fight with such a high IQ criminal. It was very frustrating to not be able to find the person. More than an hour later, Laura returned to the office. Dean, I'm sorry I can't help you. I asked all the staff here, and no one has seen this guy. Thank you for your hard work, Laura. Dean was not disappointed. This was exactly what he expected. It's okay, are you done now? Laura looked at Dean expectantly. There is one more thing. Dean took out the information of the 3 victims from his pocket. Laura, you are the manager here. You should know why these beautiful members come to the Ross gym from afar. Can you talk about the behavioral characteristics of this group of people? Laura hesitated, but when she glanced at Dean's face, she still said, most of these people are not from a high class. They come here to find high-quality opposite sex, or enjoy a one-night stand, or want to use the other party to escape from their current class. So their biggest characteristic is that they are very purposeful. After finding the target, they shape themselves into the appearance that the other party may like and are good at disguising themselves in front of people around them. And after draining the target, they leave and change to the next one. Don't talk about feelings, very realistic. Dean had an idea in his mind through Laura's description. He had come into contact with many similar women in his previous life. In this kind of situation, it is hard to say who is the hunter and who is the prey. The hunter can become the prey at any time and be cheated of money and sex. Thinking of this, Dean was shocked. Yes. If the murderer left clues at the crime scene every time to mislead and fool the police, then what about the way he entered the victim's house? Did he really get in by breaking the glass? Moreover, no signs of fighting were found at the 3 crime scenes. It is impossible that the 3 women were forced to drink drugs without any resistance. You know, this is America. Just think about the fierce look of Dean's mother holding a spray gun. Many women here are also very fierce. But it's different when someone you know drugged them. Think about it. Those women thought they had caught a rich man and took him back happily, but they didn't think that the other party was actually a brutal wolf who drank the drug-mixed drink without noticing. This possibility is very high. Dean clenched his fists. Even if he guessed wrong, there are other lines of the 4th Squadron. Anyway, as long as the case is solved, he can get experience points to upgrade. Dean, are you okay? Laura interrupted Dean's thoughts. It's getting late now, shouldn't we go to the restaurant? Dean came back to his senses and apologized. Sorry, I just thought of something. A friend of mine wants to come to your gym to get an annual membership, but he is worried about the level of your coaches, so I want to try it first. Huh? Laura was confused and subconsciously asked, what does your friend want to learn? Yoga? The close-fitting kind. After Dean finished speaking, he carried the exclaiming Laura on his shoulders and walked towards the big bed in the compartment. If you want to have sex, then you want to have sex. And you want me to treat you to a meal. He too. What a nice thought. Chapter 25, Prepare for both situations, the murderer is crazy. The next morning, Dean came to the police station refreshed. Lawrence arrived early. He saw Dean and raised the coffee cup in his hand. Did you find anything yesterday? Want a cup? No, Lawrence, although I didn't get anything in the gym yesterday, I asked about the annual fee for you and checked the level of the fitness trainers there. Dean supported his waist. I was exhausted. Lawrence became interested. How does it feel? Very smooth. Dean gave a thumbs up. The annual fee is 1,800 yuan, which is worth the money. I have already applied for a membership. When leaving today, Laura was very satisfied with his learning attitude yesterday and gave him a platinum VIP card with an annual fee of more than $10,000. Sounds good. Lawrence nodded. Although he didn't understand why checking the level of the fitness trainer made Dean look so tired, he planned to apply for a membership card after finishing the current case. 9 o'clock in the morning. Meeting room. Captain Menyen, who disappeared for a day yesterday, sat in the first seat. He had a serious expression and was no longer as gentle as before. Everyone, the director specifically wanted to talk to me yesterday. The case we are in charge of now has fermented on the internet, and the situation is not favorable to us. Now, report on your investigation yesterday. Deputy Captain, you go first. Old Hunter nodded. A red unknown substance was found in the body of the 3rd victim. The result should be out today. In addition, I have distributed the suspect's portrait to several police stations. Although there is no way to get a wanted warrant at present, as long as the suspect appears on the street, we will find him. At the same time, I asked Harry to ask his informant friends for help. As he said, he pushed Harry aside. Harry looked like he had kidney deficiency, his eyelids drooped, and he said with energy, I asked my friend who made false certificates yesterday, and the suspect's false certificates were not issued in Los Angeles, but I have sent his portrait to other friends. I will be notified as soon as there is news. Very good. Mun nodded with satisfaction. Even if we can't catch the murderer immediately, we must force the murderer to not dare to commit crimes again. Phoebe, did you gain anything here? Phoebe had dark circles under her eyes, but her mental state was good. I didn't find any suspicious people in Sam's supermarket last night. Captain, I think the bait plan can be ended. Daisy is very beautiful, and many people approached her. After investigating one by one, she and Robert had no time to sleep yesterday. Well, since we have locked the suspect, there is no need to go fishing at the supermarket. Phoebe, you and Robert will go to the lounge to have a good rest later. Mun said in a deep voice. Thank you, Captain. Phoebe and Robert hurriedly thanked the captain for his sympathy. Lawrence, what about you here? Did you find anything? Mun looked expectant. The fact that the suspect can be identified now is the credit of Lawrence's team. Lawrence shook his head. I compared a database yesterday, and did not find any suspect who looks like the portrait. He may not have a criminal record. Is that so? Munn tapped the table with his fingers. Although everyone has set up a dragnet. But Los Angeles is a big city with a lot of people moving around, there are many homeless people, and there are even more places to hide in the slums. Having a portrait does not necessarily mean that the person can be found. Lawrence, you and Dean, based on the dates when the three victims went to Sam's supermarket to consume, see if you can find traces of the murderer in the surveillance. Deputy Captain, you urge the forensics department to see if there are any new clues. As for Harry, after Phoebe and the others wake up, take the portrait together and visit the neighborhoods near the three victims to see if anyone has seen the suspect. If everyone has no objection, let's adjourn. Munn personally arranged the personnel. Naturally, everyone had no objection. Dean was even more invisible throughout the whole process. He found something else at the gym, but he was not sure that his guess was right, so he just asked Laura to help investigate secretly. Anyway, if the short suspect is really the murderer, that would be the best. If the short suspect is just a smokescreen released by the murderer, then the performance of the detective department is just used to paralyze the murderer. And he hides in the dark and gives the opponent a fatal blow. Prepare for both hands, you will win on both sides. The meeting is over. Lawrence yawned, took a large videotape from Daisy and threw it to Dean. Rookie, these are the surveillance videos of Sam's supermarket. The papers are the dates of the victims' recent visits to Sam's supermarket. You take a look first, I'm going to sleep for a while. Harry, who was standing next to him, had already fallen asleep on the table. No mistakes, one song, one post, one content, 1-6, one book, one bar. You can see it. In order to solve the case, Harry, like Dean, made great sacrifices yesterday. Dean is physically stronger than ordinary people and his mental state is okay. Seeing that Lawrence is middle-aged and can't help himself, he can't stay up all night, so he didn't refuse and picked up the videotapes to study. He has been in the detective department for a few days. Dean had discovered long ago that people here were not very fond of relying on surveillance to solve cases. The lack of cameras was one reason. Image quality and compliance issues were also very important reasons. For example, if the murderer wore a big hat, even if the camera captured the other party's actions, it would be impossible to prove the other party. Because of the obstruction, the evidence was insufficient. The judge would say that it was impossible to fully confirm that the person in the picture was the suspect himself. This was just like the content of a secretly recorded recording, which could not be used as evidence for conviction. It was very fucked up. However, the composition of the towel fiber had not yet been identified, and Laura would need some time, so Dean simply watched the surveillance videotape to kill time. In the afternoon, Dean came back from the forensic department. The identification results of the towel composition were finally out. According to the identification, the towel fibers mentioned by the victim were exactly the same as the towels wholesaled from the Ross gym. This gave Dean great confidence. In the videotape, he did not find any short man approaching the three victims. Now he just had to wait for news from Laura. Lawrence had a good sleep and was still a little confused. Dean, how is it? Did the surveillance find anything? No. Dean shook his head. The three victims actually seldom go to the supermarket, but the towel fibers in the victims' mouths have been confirmed to be exactly the same as the towels provided by Ross Gym. Are you still paying attention to this? Lawrence put down the bitter coffee. Dean, unless you can find the towel stained with saliva in the deceased's mouth, similar comparisons can't be used as evidence at all. I think you're not as good as. Suddenly, bang, the door of the office was pushed open. Daisy rushed in with an unbelievable look on her face and grabbed Lawrence. The command center received a report that a home invasion, rape and murder case occurred at the Karen Hotel, and it is surprisingly similar to the previous three cases. The fourth home invasion, rape and murder case happened just when everyone thought they had laid a dragnet. The murderer did it in addition to the first case. One a day after that. Crazy. Signed, status changed today and tomorrow. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.